Hello and welcome to Hightailing Through History, a history podcast where two sisters get high and surprise each other with a story from history's vault of the weird and the wonderful. I'm Laurel, the older sister.
I'm Katie, the younger sister.
Doesn't she look like a beautiful cotton candy unicorn princess? I love your hair, Katie. It looks so cool.
It's serving 90s Lisa Frank realness.
You know what? Yes, it does. You look like a Lisa Frank folder.
Yeah.
Trying to think of which one. Maybe like the little cheetah cat one.
That
had a lot of teal. Right?
There's a lot of teal. Dolphins? We looked the dolphins. What was the one that Shelley picked out? She said the seal, I think, the little leopard seal.
Yeah.
I just remember when we were looking them up, that like all the ones that you had like in your room came up, and I was like, because I never had any, I just used yours. In true younger sibling fashion.
I loved Lisa Frank so much. I had all the Lisa Frank stuff, and the folders at least. I loved them. So you actually used Lisa Frank pictures as inspiration for your hair?
No. I just told Shelley, I was like, I want like bright pink with bright blue and bright yellow light. And she goes, so like a highlighter set. I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess if you're going to put it that way. Yeah. And then when we got done, she goes, oh my God, you look like Lisa Frank threw up all over your head. I was like, I mean, there are worse things in life.
Not a terrible compliment, as far as I'm concerned. Not a terrible compliment. Oh, well, Katie, it's nice to be back with you again in the Smoke Circle. It's nice to be back with all of you. I'm excited to do our episode today. I feel like it's been a while.
Well, it has.
We had like the 2-part, and so it's a different format. And it's kind of nice to get to be back together again and just kind of go back to the old ways. And it feels like it's been such a while. So
the old ways.
Sorry, my edible's starting to kick in. What are you drinking today, Katie?
I'm drinking, well, it's not going to matter that I show you the cup because you can't see it. I made a smoothie for breakfast, so that's what I have.
We are doing a morning recording session, which I actually really like. It's kind of fun. Like unfortunately, it's just an advertisement for Dunkin' Donuts. I should put some tape on that. Hey, Dunkin'.
Right? I'll take this tape off when you start giving me some cash.
So... in this economy, this is not free. This is not free advertisement.
Right. Seriously.
But it's fun. I'm doing a little bit of like a wake and bake this morning. It's kind of weird to start your day with like your morning vitamins and half an edible, like that's kind of a weird flex on the day, but that's fun. And so I've got coffee, water, half an edible. Katie's got a smoothie. I hope you guys are all excited. I know that both of our stories are kind of long, so we're gonna get into it with some bottle leaf grinder. Ooh, it's been a hot minute. I have no idea which one I'm gonna pick, but here we go. Grinder, shoot. Oh, what is this? Oh, that'd be a grinder. Sorry. I threw a scissor at you, but that's not correct. It would have been a grinder if.
Yeah, there you go.
If that's cool. I can
yeah, it's all right.
All right, awesome.
You blazed that trail.
So with Valentine's Day coming up, I thought it'd be fun to talk about Katie's favorite subject, and that's love and romance.
Is it sarcasm?
Well, sarcasm, yes. Unless you're really not that like opposed to it. I always think that you're like not a
it depends.
Person.
It depends if it's done well. For the most part, like, if you tell me, like, this movie is a love story, I'll be like, pass.
Yeah.
But, like, if it happens and it's done well, I'm like, man, that was, like, just right in the feelings, man. Right in the fucking feelings.
Yeah.
It can be done well. So I'm not completely opposed to love.
And no, I am not one of those girlies, especially as an older millennial. I feel like the fact that I have not seen The Notebook, and I don't really care to.
Amen to that. Let us hold out strong against it. Everyone's like, oh my God.
I mean, like there's all like these sort of romance hallmark or benchmarks that I feel like a lot of women my age are like, love it, seen it, love it.
Can't live
And
without it.
I've not done that. In fact, it's actually
Yeah.
really weird to me that and I do like a period romance. Like I was posting about North and South the other day. I love that movie. But on the same in the same breath, I've not I've not seen Pride and Prejudice all the way through. Any of the Austen, I've not read an Austen book, like, so there's some weird things that I'm like, I would like to do those things.
You're just not overly wiped out with it, I believe,
Yeah.
is what you're trying to say. And that's kind of where again, if it's done well, great. If it's just all romance, I'm like, listen, I don't mean to be that person, but I need some, like, I was going to go straight into, like, orcs and stuff, but, like, it doesn't have to be that. Like, I'm in for a good battle scene, too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
man.
Well, I thought it'd be fun to bring you all some stories of history's great loves, or at least very famous love
Oh,
stories.
see,
in
this will be
history.
exciting. Some
Okay.
interesting things have been done in the name of love, so I think this will be actually a good one.
And it was great because I was like, look, there are so many different stories that anyone could think of, right? There's so many across time and across different cultures. And, I was like, I'm going to just let the people pick. So I went to Instagram and I said, look, what are some of your favorite love stories in history? And what was great is I got feedback, I got answers back from people who are all also history content creators or history podcasters. So that was really fun to get like what they thought that it's almost like they picked them for me. Like, I know that you're going to have a good time with this. Like, this is one that I like, but you're going to have a good time with this too. And that's why I really appreciated. So thank you, all of you. So I'm going to be letting you know, I'm going to be crediting the suggestion to each person so that you can always check them out as well too, because they're all amazing people. So here we go. We're going to go into history's great love stories. And as I said, we could really start anywhere in the world, any time period, and you'd find ferociously passionate, amazing love stories.
Ferociously
right? Ferociously passionate. I don't know why I put ferociously in there.
No, it was good. It needed to stay there.
Right out the gates in the first sentence. But, you could like put your finger on the map, close your eyes, boom, where is that? Oh, this part of the world? Cool, excellent. You could go back in time and find a fantastic love story anywhere. But for the most part, we're actually spending our time in the City of Lights.
Paris.
We're beginning and ending and spending quite a bit of time in between.
So we
Paris,
both
France.
end up in France. There it happens.
There's our connection. So we're going to start with France. I'm going to go in a chronological order as well, too. We're going to go back to France and into Paris with a story of forbidden love.
Oh, boy.
Ooh la la. There we are. So this story comes from Dr. Josh, whose Instagram account is Rue Chemin Vert. How's that? How's that for some French there?
Sounds good. I had to look up all my French, so
I have it linked. But he has a really fantastic account of mostly focusing on World War I era history, which is really cool. But then his captions that he makes are brilliant. Like, not only are they like very smart and well informed, but they're also really funny as well too. And I was like, man, I really hope people are reading these captions because it's worth it. But anyway, so he sent me this one and he said it's a good story, but also it's like a tragic one. I was like, ooh, right off the bat, here we go. Rewind it back, 12th century. We're in the 1100s. And the great cathedral school of Notre Dame de Paris, we meet philosopher Pierre Abelard, who is considered to be the great Catholic philosopher and theologian of the 12th century, or of the Middle Ages, really. It was kind of a big deal, and he knew it. He had a big old brain, and he made no apologies for how he used it and what he said, and it often got him into some trouble. But again, like I said, he was really good at arguing, and his intellect and his linguistic prowess would be used to support whatever he wanted to say and do, and often drew some controversy. And he is described not only as very intelligent, but witty and charming. Now, to further get an idea of the timeline in history, just so we kind of are understanding the 1100s, the Middle Ages here, Pierre Abelard was born in 1079 and died in 1142. We are fully in the Middle Ages, in the times of the early Crusades, which began in 1095. Oxford University was established the following year in 1096. So just to put it in perspective, those are all some things that happened just after Abelard was born. And it's not like Renaissance and Enlightenment levels of learning and knowledge, but at this time there is certainly a new wave of knowledge and an establishment of places and centers to learn in, but again, heavily within a religious context, right? So science is really the thing that starts opening up the conversation of like opens the box of like, hey, why do these things happen? And oh, because God. Why do these things happen? Oh, because science, and here's how we can explain them. And that's like the different level of thinking when the Enlightenment comes along. Abelard is, at the time of our love story, he's about 36 or 37. And he's already established as a smarty pants. His arrival to the school at Notre Dame creates a lot of excitement because he's a big deal. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. He's going to come and teach at our school. Fantastic. And part of that, part of being a big deal was that he had a lot of students that would just be in throngs around him, like just wanting to be in his orbit kind of thing, so he's like big man on campus, right? But Abelard is about to fall in love. Enter Heloise, stage left. There she is. And she's beautiful. And what's more remarkable than how beautiful she is how intelligent she is. She's so smart. She's skilled in languages. She knows not only Latin, but Greek and Hebrew as well. And she has a knack for philosophy. I know, which is cool. Because again, we had to think in the time that women weren't getting educated en masse, right? So it wasn't like everyone could get an education. She's born of noble birth, so that makes sense, right? And she's born at about 1101. And it's estimated that she was in her late teens, about 18, 19, or very early 20s when she meets Abelard. So again, Abelard is about 36 or 37, professor at the school, or, teacher at the school. And Heloise, 18, 19, or like 20, 21, that sort of thing. Her guardian is her uncle Fulbert, who is a canon or clergyman at the precincts of Notre Dame. And we learn a lot about Abelard and Heloise from the Historia Calamitatum, which just, when you think about that, Historia Calamitatum, like calamity, basically. Yeah, which was essentially an autobiography from Abelard, which translates to, roughly, to the story of my misfortunes. We also get quite a bit from their famous letters back and forth. So he's got this autobiography that he writes midway through his life. And then they have a series of love letters that go back and forth. And that's how we're able to kind of piece things together here, which is also kind of interesting with the love letters because they've miraculously survived and, have made it to publishing today. But these are all my main sources.
That's actually really impressive.
Mm-hmm. In chapter 6 of the Historia Calamitatum, he talks about how he meets Heloise. And he says that not only was she so beautiful, but she was wicked smart, and that because of those things, he was smitten. She's pretty, she's smart, I'm in love. Thus, here's a quote here. Thus, utterly aflame with my passion for this maiden, I sought to discover means whereby I might have daily and familiar speech with her, thereby the more easily to win her consent. For this purpose, I persuaded the girl's uncle, with the aid of some of his friends, to take me into his household, for he dwelt hard by the school, meaning like he lived right next to the school, in return for the payment of a small sum. So please take me in. I'll give you a small amount of money. It won't be like a ton, but if you could like take me in for a small amount of money, I'll make sure Heloise gets a great education. So Abelard, wanting to be near her and woo her, asked to live in the house with Heloise and Fulbert in order to tutor her and give her a great education, which was rare for women to get, but especially with a man of his status, it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, the great Abelard's going to educate my niece. And Fulbert loves his niece. He is like, well, he's her guardian, right? And he loves her so much. And he's like, absolutely, I want her to have a great education. Great, let's do this. Now, I don't know if you already caught it. I'm trying not to hint too hard about it, but I do think it's like prudent to point out that Heloise didn't strike me to be wise to this plot. My thinking when I went into this story, into my first read through, I thought that perhaps Abelard and Heloise met at the school. Like maybe her uncle was taking her on a tour through the school or something. I don't know. Or she had to be there with him for some reason. And
Yeah.
Abelard and Heloise meet and they're like talking a little bit like, oh, this is my niece. Oh, this is Abelard. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Oh, okay. And they talked back and forth and it started like a little spark of a flirtation,
Yeah.
right? That's what I thought. But when I read this, I started interpreting it a little bit differently because it sounds more like he saw her. They might have still met, but that he was like, I have to have that and I'm going to try and get in there into their house.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a different, especially since she's
Robbing the cradle.
almost literally half his age. So I was kind of like, okay. Now, again, we have to remember this is the Middle Ages. Like girls would be married between the ages of 14 and 16 sort of time.
I was going to say, you married real young back in the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not that I don't want to apologize for it because he is definitely a much older man, his influence to get in there. But also, I don't know. Anyway, just point it out. And then I'll keep my...
He did say in the letter to gain the lady's consent. So I'll give him a little bit of points for that.
Yeah. He's certainly not trying to... Yeah, I want to make that clear. It's like there's certainly an age difference and there is a power dynamics that I raise my eyebrow at being like a teacher student sort of thing. But he's not trying to force him. He wants to get into the house so he can see her all the time and talk to her. He wants to talk to her and woo her and court her. But I'm also like, all right, buddy, you know what I'm saying?
I see your game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's certainly not trying to force himself on her.
But he would like to win her affections if he could, yes.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Now we got that all cleared up. Anyway, hot historical goss. Let's go back to that. Abelard moves in, and soon a torrid love affair begins. She's just as in love with him. They are smitten for each other. They're banging in the kitchen, in her uncle's bedroom, in her bedroom. It's a whole thing. They are ever so in love. But as it sort of happens in these sort of liaisons, Heloise tells Abelard that she's pregnant. And since Fulbert is away for an extended period of time, Abelard sends Heloise to his sister's house so that way she can be pregnant, visibly be pregnant and not be seen, and then give birth away from Paris. She has a little boy, and the little boy then stays with Abelard's sister. So he's out of the rest of the story. He ends up being raised by Abelard's sister. Now, in the meantime, Fulbert, he was away. He's now returned. Abelard tells him what's happened because his niece isn't here anymore, right? And he's like, where is she? Fulbert is pissed. He's so pissed, so angry. And Abelard says, look, I get that you're mad. I hear that. I hear your words. I see your frustrations. I get that you're mad, but I want to do the right thing. I want to marry her and I want to have a family together. But it's very important that the affair portion stays secret. So I will marry her, but just please don't tell anyone how she got pregnant in the first place, basically. Let's get married and then we start from there. And Fulbert's like, all right, okay, you want to do the right thing. I appreciate that. However, Heloise, for a time, she adamantly refuses to marry Abelard. And it's not because she doesn't love him, but she essentially says, my uncle might be okay with it. He might say he's okay. He's not okay. And also, I can't let you marry me and take you away from your work. According to Abelard in the Historia Calamitatum, she says to him, sorry, I'm going to speak in the first person here. What penalties would the world rightly demand of me if I should rob it of so shining a light? What curses would follow such a loss to the church? What tears among the philosophers would result from such a marriage? How unfitting, how lamentable it would be for him, whose nature had he had been made for the whole world. You're made for the world. You can't devote yourself to one woman solely and to subject yourself to such humiliation. So that's what he's saying she said about the situation. We do know that she refused to marry him, but that's what his quote is for her.
Oh.
Yeah. And so she holds out for a while, but seeing that there's no other option on the table, she's like, you know what, you're
Yeah.
right, probably the best way to do it.
Uh-huh.
Fine. And they get married in a secret ceremony.
Okay.
And this, folks, is where shit hits the fan. Okay, so Fulbert doesn't keep his end of the bargain. You know how he said, like, sure, you marry her, I'll keep it a secret. Zip, lock it and throw it away the key. No, he kept that key, and he immediately unlocked his mouth and just started spitting words. He was telling people about it. Now, Heloise, when she's confronted about this from other people, like, oh, whoa, she's like, no, my uncle is lying. He's full of shit. I'm not having it anymore. He is no longer my family. Untrue. He's lying. So, right. So Abelard suggests that the safest thing that Heloise do is to run away to a convent, and he helps her escape. He's like, you need to get out of town because now people are like getting in your business and coming after you. And Fulbert is so angry that he's not okay. And we just need to get you out of town. I don't know why he doesn't send her away to his sisters. Like, I feel like that's the much better option.
Right?
It's a convent. I don't know. Fulbert.
Well, you have to remember back in the day, to be religious and pious was looked at as a very good thing.
Well, right. Yeah. This is where a lot of women ended up, was in
I think
for this sort of thing. But
yeah, I think that was yeah, I just think it's like, quote unquote, to be the godly thing to do, I think was a really good thing for women. And especially in like these situations. So,
and again, remember, he is a Catholic philosopher. So even though he would say things that were kind of controversial, everything was still within the realm of Christianity, like Christian teachings,
right,
and philosophies. Now, Fulbert thinks that her running away and joining a convent is a ploy for Abelard to just get rid of Heloise and just be like, all right, be gone with you, get out to a convent.
Basically, he can do no right in the uncle's eyes.
Yeah, there's no calming him now. And so he makes him more mad. And he hires men. Ooh, gird your loins, everybody. He hires men to bust into Abelard's room in the middle of the night, hold him down, and castrate him. Yikes. Yeah. Katie's in stunned disbelief.
Like,
yeah.
Maybe, but like, what are you hoping to achieve? Again, he married her. It's not like he was like a fling and then he's like, on to my next mistress. Like, that's not what it was at all.
No, well, it wasn't. But him sending her away to the convent made him think that probably was what it was. He's like, oh, you think you're just going to sleep around and just, yeah. That's how I've interpreted it.
He had lots of strong passions for his niece.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the honor and everything, especially as a noblewoman. It's like a whole thing.
Biggest eye roll. I hope you could hear it halfway across the world.
So Abelard, he's now disgraced, of course, and he leaves for a monastery and becomes a monk. Now, essentially, Abelard is like a quote-unquote career monk for the rest of his life, just kind of bouncing around from place to place as each church kind of gets sick of him and moves him along. They kind of get tired of his antics. So that's basically the rest of Abelard's life. I'm going to fill in some pieces here. About 12 years go by, and Heloise is now the abbess of a new religious community called the Paraclete. I think it's like sort of like a commune sort of place. I had a hard time figuring out exactly what it was, but it was basically just another place it's like another monastery, but just more of a community outside just the church. And by chance, Heloise comes into possession of this really huge long letter from a man written to a friend of his to comfort this friend who is going through a hard time. So it's like, that's the whole tone of this giant letter. But she recognizes the handwriting as Abelard's. So she decides to read it. You know, we're not sure how she gets in the possession of this. She's also surprised she's in possession of it. She says, I happen to see this letter and I recognize the handwriting. And in the letter, Abelard is lamenting his own life, essentially. So he is trying to comfort his friend, but he's like, man, I know you're having a hard time. I'm also having a hard time. Let's talk about it. And so he's like, here's all these things that are going on with me. And it's a huge, long letter. And he's talking about how he came to ruin of body and ruin of reputation, how he fell in love with Heloise and all the terrible consequences that came out of that. And he ends it with this musing aloud, like, the fact that he can't stop thinking about her after 12 years. He's like, do I still love her? You know, I must still love her if like she's still in my mind, right?
Yeah.
But mostly he seems to just write it off as like vice and like old offenses. And she's really hurt by this because she loves him. And she like everything she did was for him, right? And it brings back all these feelings that she had for him. And she writes him. She's like, let me tell you something.
Grabs quill, scribbles furiously.
Yeah. If she didn't happen to see this letter, their story would have probably ended with them living separate pious lives. Like she would have never maybe known what had actually happened to him. Maybe she would have, but they would have never been in contact again. But these fucking letters, y'all. Oh man, they'll break your heart. Okay, I won't read all of them. I'm going to read a couple of them, or a couple bits, but what ends up happening is Heloise writes back and she says, you know, my life would have been a lot easier if I hadn't found this letter to your friend. But it really saddens me that you regret us.
Yeah.
Like, I know I just wasn't a body for you to take comfort in. You know what I mean? I wasn't just a notch in the bedpost sort of thing. I know that we loved each other. And I love you still. And she entreats Abelard to write to her as, quote, so innocent a pleasure is not forbidden to us. Let us not lose through negligence the only happiness which is left us, and the only one, perhaps, which the malice of our enemies can never ravish from us.
Damn.
This girl, oh, I know. She's basically like, it won't be so, like, we can write to each other. That's not so bad. Like, please, it's like the only thing we can have left for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
No, they can't take that away from us. You know? Now, Abelard is surprised that she saw the letter, like, oh, you weren't meant to see that. But he's now pious. He's very pious to everything. Whereas before he maybe rocked the boat a little bit with some of the things he would say. He's a lot more like God-centered and godly in his speech. And he's also a little bit self-centered too. So he always comes across as feeling very sorry for himself. I'm not saying he doesn't have things to feel sorry about himself for, but just that he's still very sad but very pious. So there's a lot of that energy in what he writes. And so any communication with her, he always has this emotional wall up. And he's like really hard with her, but there's also sometimes in the same breath, he'll like show this sort of nostalgia for her and their past together. And there's so much shame and confusion for how he feels for her. And he even says, I hate you, I love you. And then he feels shame coming in on him from all sides. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm a man of God now. And all this stuff. So, but he does end his reply with the request that he prays for her and asks that she not be taken by old feelings for him, that those are like earthly things, you know. But,
bro,
when I die, he says, he wants to be buried at the Paraclete, where Heloise is the abbess. It's like, I want to be buried where you are. All right. So there's
bro.
that.
Bro still loves her, dude.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Oh, yeah. I think what he's feeling, it sounds like to me that the bad things that happened were punishment for not marrying her first. So he's really like, you know what I mean? That's what it seems like. But listen, I'll just keep my opinions
really
to myself.
All around, you know. It's just,
it is.
It's so sad. But letter 4 from Heloise, this one kills me. She is so hurt, and she's asking this man to love her, or at least just not denounce the love he had for her. You know, like, at least just don't like say you never loved me, you know, like that's really going to crush my soul. And she talks about when, kind of inflames my cheeks a little bit. She talks about how when she's celebrating mass and like, she's like on her knees. Oh God, I can't even say it without laughing. Sorry, I got the giggles. Stop it, Laurel. Like
I gotta hear this.
She's praying that she's like thinking about being with him, you know?
Damn,
like
girl.
I know, like her hands on her and the things they used to do together. I was like, oh, okay. I was like blushing a little. I'm blushing a little bit now. It's steamy, you guys. Okay. It makes me think of that song from Eurotrip where he's like, Scotty thinks like when she's at church, she's down on her knees with me or something like that. Like, not. Have you seen that movie? Scotty doesn't know.
I've seen that clip, but yeah.
So anyway, that was what was in my head when I'm trying to write this. But she's, but mostly really, she's just heartbroken. she's heartbroken, she's angry, and she says, like, I can't stop loving you. Like, I can't just turn it off. I can't forget you. I can't forget what we had. And she just laments that they were just struck down when they were the least deserving of being struck down. They're like, we had love. We didn't deserve this. I know. And I'm just going, oh, I'm reading it. And then towards the end, she's like, everything I've done has always been for you. Like, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to cause you harm or ruin. Like, when I didn't want to marry you, it's because I wanted you to live a full life, outside of an attachment to a woman. I wanted you to pursue your career. Like, I went to the convent because you wanted me to. Like I did it all for love. I
would have stayed your wife if you had let me.
I know. And she's like, but she's not like saying, I did this for you. Like, she's not giving him any attitude with it, although I feel like maybe she could.
Yeah.
She's just like, please at least understand that everything I always did was for you, was for your highest benefit, or what I felt was your highest benefit. But I will try to like smother my love for you because that is what you want. I'll do this for you again. I've done everything for you out of love, and I will not love you for you. Oh, girl. Anyway, so brushes my hair back. There we go. Now, the remaining letters, there's about 6 in total. They go back and forth like this. Heloise is heartbroken, and Abelard is basically like, don't write to me again. Don't say such sinful things. You need to dedicate your life to God. That's what you're supposed to do. Focus on that, not
I'm
me.
sorry, you read the Book of Solomon, my dude? There's some sinful things in there. Don't even go there with me. I will bust it. Song of Solomon, maybe that's what it is.
Song of Solomon, I don't know. I should.
You know what I'm talking. It's like the only sex scene in the Bible. Okay, carry on.
And I'm sorry, everybody. This is really such an unsatisfying and heartbreaking story. But Abelard passes away in 1142, and according to his wishes, his body is sent to the Paraclete to be buried. Heloise dies in 1163, which is 21 years later, and is buried alongside Pierre Abelard, the man she loved. Oh,
they loved each other. He wouldn't have wanted to be buried by her. He just felt the need to.
It had a lot of the energy of like, I can't love you. Like, please don't talk to me any longer. I can't, because it was just, it was too much for his feelings. He felt conflicted.
It's because he felt guilty. He felt that God punished him. That's what it is. It all comes down to religion. So, and that's all I'll say on that. I won't go any further because anything else I say after that will probably not be acceptable.
We've got more letters, folks.
Oh, God.
If you like letters, we've got letters. History's got the best love letters, okay? And so my next one here has over 150 of them written over the course of 14 years. I know. Holy letters. Our next 3 love stories have a beautiful little thread tied through all of them. And they're also chronological as well too, but they do attach, even though the people who suggested them to me did not, they didn't coordinate this at all. It's just how it happened. I love it.
It just worked out well.
So for their first one, we're going to go to 1770s colonial America. 2 founding fathers and presidents who were opposites in personality and politics, but became dear friends, then enemies, and then dear friends once again before death. This is Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, a tale of platonic love and friendship. So when I did put the prompt out on Instagram, I said, I am leaving the definition of love open here. It could be romantic love. It could be platonic love. If someone had like a love for a cause, like, let's be creative with it. Let's see what we get. So this one was sent to us by Dr. Darren Reed, who did a couple episodes with us, which was great. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is the only platonic tale that we have here. And this is fun. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Reed, history professor over at Coventry University.
He's great.
His episodes. I know. I was like, this is good. It's good when we have our first 2 right out the bat are from historians,
Yeah.
The docs. So thanks, docs.
Oh, yeah.
Jefferson and Adams. Here we go. So they first made each other's acquaintance in 1775 in Philadelphia. Now,
I've heard of it.
I know, right? You're like, oh, yeah. I remember this from a textbook or 2. And that is a who's who of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody's there.
Uh-huh.
In their work in politics, the 2 men became friends. Although It's amazing how they even became friends in the first place, because they are different in about every single way you can imagine. Whatever could be a difference in somebody, that's the difference between these two men.
Yeah.
So
sometimes opposites attract.
Right? Seems the only thing that they did agree upon. So here's their common ground here, is that America should be free from British rule. So like American independence. And then also fuck Alexander Hamilton.
Is this
they did not like him.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, is this a reference I don't understand, or?
No, just the two men just did not like Alexander Hamilton.
Interesting.
So they could bond over those two things. So let's talk about personalities first between the two men. Okay, so we have our Jefferson column. Boop. We have our Adams column. Boop. Now, Jefferson was very aristocratic. You know, he is what you think of as your 18th century powdered wig gentleman. You know, he values politeness, hates any sort of confrontation, you know, everything that he does, even if he doesn't like somebody, he does it through like that sort of slippery, overly polite sort of way of confronting somebody, you know.
English?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But because of this, people would be like, well, he never actually really says what he thinks. So we think he's kind of two-faced and we never know how he really feels about something. Now, Adams, on the other hand, he's not that. Mm-hmm. Not that. Not even a little bit. He's a little bit, I really like John Adams. He's a little bit like neurotic and erratic. You know, he's a little bit unsure of himself at times. And just kind of, he was really sarcastic. And he just leveled that sarcasm at anyone who felt deserved it, which is great. Unlike Jefferson, right? So he did not feel the need to act polite to, you know, be nice, be polite to save people's feelings. He just said what he meant. And so therefore, he also wasn't always well liked by people because he said what he meant. So like,
so John Adams and I have a lot in common.
Yeah, you would love John Adams. I think he's great.
Probably. We'd have hung out.
Yeah, for sure. Beyond personality, the two were diametrically opposed in their personal practices and their politics. Now, what we know about Thomas Jefferson in American history is that he comes from a line of wealthy Virginian planters. Mm-hmm. He was an enslaver.
Oh, yeah.
By a lot. He had well over 600 enslaved peoples over the course of like his adult life, at least. There are estimates that are greater than that.
Yep.
Of any other signer of the Declaration of Independence, he enslaved the most people. This is very real history, right?
Yes.
Now, Adams, on the other hand, was an egalitarian, which means that everyone, no matter what you look like or how you practice your, religion or your life or where you're from, every single human being has the right to be free and equal, or at least have equal rights and opportunities.
Yeah,
not enslaver.
John Adams and I are definitely bros.
Yeah. And he worked his ass off as a lawyer to get where he was, but he was never wealthy and well-connected, which is also like the opposite of Jefferson, who again, wealthy, well-connected.
Yeah. Jefferson
worked to get to where he was. Now, politically, and this is for the sake of our story. So the other stuff is like, good to know. But for the sake of our story, this is probably the most important difference here. And they are opposites in their politics. Jefferson believed in the smallest amount of government possible, believing that people are naturally sociable if the government didn't interfere. Like, let the people be.
Okay.
And Jefferson created the idea of American exceptionalism, which is the belief that the United States is either distinctive, unique, exemplary, or even morally superior to other nations. Like, America is the best.
Well, that didn't stick around at all.
Yeah, and everybody should do what America does because she's leading the way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so we started that way. Okay.
Yeah. So part of that was also that he supported all kinds of republic revolutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, republic revolutions.
Yep.
All over the world, thinking that they would make the world a better and more free place to be and live.
Right.
Revolutions like the French Revolution, for example. He's a big supporter of that. And while this type of thinking was progressive for the time, so like this was progressive thinking over here, and Jefferson for the time is described as a radical liberal, it's different from what today's definition of liberal is, right? So same thing goes for conservative. It's just kind of flip-flopped, right?
Yes.
Now, Adams, not that. He's a conservative. He's a Federalist. Another famous Federalist is Alexander Hamilton. So.
Indeed. Also an excellent wine.
It is a good wine, yeah.
Federalist, so good, dude. So good.
I agree.
Finished bourbon barrels. Oh, let's talk about it. Anyway.
But he was, even though he was like egalitarian, freedom for all, right? He was much more a realist about society.
Yeah.
And some people would say like, oh, you're just a pessimist. He's like, no, I just see how the world has worked and is working and will work. You know,
right.
I study these things. Now, in regards to Jefferson's idea about American exceptionalism, Adams was like, look, America is no different than any other country because humans live here.
Right.
And humans are fallible and sometimes shitty, right?
Mm-hmm. Most times, but yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, he's like, all people should be equal and have equal rights and opportunities, but they do not.
Correct.
Because there are systems in place that don't allow that to happen, right? So he's already talking about these things. He's like, we are not all born into the same circumstances. We're not all born with the same health, physical or mental capabilities.
Listen, he is an intelligent man.
Yeah. We're not beautiful and smart. We're not, inevitably those who are richer, more aristocratic, more well-connected, even prettier are going to rise to the top. They always do. They always have. Mm-hmm. That's how shit's worked. It's always going to be the richer or more attractive, charismatic person, not necessarily the person who's smartest and best for the job.
Right.
It's how it's worked in the 18th century, and it's how it's worked before and after.
That's how it works now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Laurel, you're like, Laurel, yeah, cool. Thanks for the history lesson.
I was going to just tell you to keep repeating John Adams. I liked him. It's like, listen, I could listen to him all day. I don't know how our souls never found each other.
The John Adams series on HBO is actually really good. I still have yet to finish.
I don't have HBO.
Oh, okay.
Mom and Dad kicked me off of it, those bastards.
Come over to my house. We'll watch
I will.
But it's really good. And Paul Giamatti, who's just a legend, an icon. Yeah, he's John Adams. It's great.
Really?
Yeah, he does a great job. And Laura Linney is Abigail Adams, who's fantastic. So,
I'm sure if I saw a picture, I'd know her.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's a great series if you're interested. But I know you guys are like, okay, cool. They're opposites. Great, we get it.
Very much so.
Where's the love story here? So I hear you. I'd have to make all these differences so that we can really understand how
you got to appreciate the relationship, man.
We're talking polar opposites pushing back and forth, right? A year after their meeting, they've become friends a little bit. And Adam says to old TJ, he says, hey, TJ, you have a way with words. You have a skill with the quill. It's got to be you who writes the Declaration of Independence. And TJ does.
Skill with the quill. Get the fuck out now.
I know. And old TJ does. TJ does, and then later it's stolen by a man named Benjamin Gates, from looking for a map on the back of it. Anyway, sorry. No, that's not true, obviously. That's national treasure.
You mean Nick Cage didn't break into, where is it, Independence Hall?
No, Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, where is it at, actually? I should know this, but I don't.
The National Archives with the Constitution.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's where it's at?
So. I feel like I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't.
We should. We're Americans, but I mean, I could probably tell you.
I've seen it with my eyes, but...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got to go on the 8th grade trip? Oh, man. I didn't get to go. What's it like? Is it old as hell?
Yeah, and it's really far away, so it's like you walk by it, there's security on each side.
Yeah.
You gotta keep moving. You can't stop too long, but...
really?
I think you can look at it.
Oh man, I'd be all plastered against the glass. Yeah. I would be. I'd be like, wow.
Because there's such a long line of people getting to see it. So
they can fucking wait. Did you know how long it took me to get here?
You can stop for a minute, but I think you can't linger, right? But anyway, it's under a whole lot of glass and
could you read it or no?
now you see like We the People. And
Well, yeah, everybody sees that.
Well, that's its largest print too.
Yeah.
You see that on there. Yeah, I mean, you can probably.
Is it pretty faded?
No, it's pretty good actually. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
It was also 20.
We're not going there.
4 years. Yeah, 24 years ago.
Damn.
But anyway, it's cool.
What were you, 6?
Go to Washington D.C. Yeah, I was. God, I was so young.
Exactly.
Little baby Laurel in Washington D.C.
Right.
On tour.
On tour.
Okay. Anyway, so it's the 1780s. Adams and Jefferson, they both served as diplomats to Europe, so they're living in England and France. And this is where the friendship really blossoms. So Adams' wife, Abigail Adams, I mentioned, and in my humble opinion, is one of my favorite founding mothers, maybe the favorite founding mother. She's lovely. And also, John and Abigail could be their own story for this episode because their love story is just fantastic enough as it is. Very beautiful little partnership. And they're so lovely. But Abigail forms a close friendship with Jefferson as well. And so they basically just take Jefferson in as like family. Like, here, Teach, you're part of our family now.
Come on, third wheel.
Yeah, third wheel. That's what it is. But things all get complicated when they get back from Europe. John Adams is vice president to George Washington now. And then Jefferson is the secretary of State.
George Washington had excellent taste. How did I not know? I really need to read my own history more often because, damn, I should know these things and I don't.
Yeah. So John Adams, vice president. Thomas Jefferson is secretary of state. Gotcha. Remember how I said Jefferson is pro-small government?
Yes.
Right? And so just after the Revolutionary War, the government, Washington's government and his administration, was a more strong central government with the purpose of, hey, we're new. We got to stick together here.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a new country. You'd be kind of stupid to do a small government. It would fall apart.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm on that side too, and so is Adams, but I'm also on Adams' side for everything.
Well, right. So, no, I'm just, again, it's just logic, though. It's just like, it's like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying.
Well, Jefferson's real nervous about that, and he is not happy that that's the way that the government's been like acting so far and serving the people and all this, and he's worried that this new American government's going to stay that way. It's going to be a strong central authority, and so he's like, I'm going to start leaning into this new Republican Party. And Adams is like, well, we got to hang on to this Federalist strong government thing because we got to stay together.
Right.
And Jefferson gets really bent out of shape about it and later resigns. When Washington then takes a neutral policy regarding what's happening over in France. So despite spending time in France and in the Palace of Versailles, TJ is Thomas Jefferson, by the way.
Yeah.
TJ, he's pro-revolution. So even when the king and queen are beheaded, he's like, that's great. Let's keep this going. So, and people are like, ooh, hey, like you knew the king and queen, like, maybe don't be.
He just doesn't like royalty, which I understand, but you can also like exile them as opposed to like just lopping off their heads. Anyway. I'm going to tell you what, my dude, I guess you consider like a dictator, and I think he's a little bit nicer than some of these people. So there you go. Well, in some moments. Anyway.
Looking forward to it. So anyway, so TJ is like, I'm not happy with where the government is, and now that you're neutral about what's going on in France and not wanting to help them, I'm going home. Screw you guys, I'm going home. And
all right, Cartman, go home.
He goes to retire to his home Monticello. There he is. Now Adams is like, ugh, this fucking guy. He's not retiring. Like he is not fooling me. He's full of shit. He's not retiring, and he's going to come back. And with cracks already in the friendship because of their different stances on politics, Adam starts having a little bit of a gossip about Jefferson behind his back to his sons, to Adams's sons. He's talking to his sons in letters being like,
this fucking guy.
This fucking guy. And then sure enough, George Washington's like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm going home. And there is a presidential election in 1796, and old TJ comes out of his retirement and runs against Adams.
What a shock.
Adams wins by a narrow margin, which makes Jefferson his vice president. That's how it worked at the time.
That's right.
Which I kind of like that.
I do like that because it makes you work together. I think we should bring that back. I think it would be a really interesting thing to do.
Just try it. So Adams wins by a narrow margin. Jefferson becomes his vice president. And they still haven't like fully fallen out with each other. But Adams proposes, hey, you and I, we really join forces and let's make this as much of a bipartisan administration as we can. But Teach is like, oh, no, sorry. See, like, my crew doesn't think that's a good idea because, like, we're on different sides and all. So, like, I'm going to stick with my Republican friends and you do your own thing. And so that's what did it. Like, this is where it fully breaks. They turn.
So it was Jefferson's fault, just pointing that out.
Well, Adams is having a little gossy goss about
it. No,
it.
he is. They're both guilty.
Thomas Jefferson's like, you know what? No, like, my new friends don't think that's cool that we, like, hang out together. So, yeah. So it breaks apart. Frenemies, boom. And so
still got to work together.
Essentially, Adams just kind of ignores his cabinet. Abigail becomes his cabinet, and in a way, and he just doesn't really consult with them too much. And then Jefferson further just makes more of an alliance into this Republican Party and makes more of a friend with fellow Republican and future president James Madison. And they just talk shit behind Adams's back all the time.
Yeah.
So, knuckle crack here. Adams is up for re-election. Thomas Jefferson, by the way, has been running his mouth saying Adams is only going to serve one term. Like, he is not going to last.
Yeah.
Adams is up for re-election in 1800. And ooh, kids, ooh, the election of 1800 is known as one of the nastiest, most dirty, ugly presidential elections in American history.
Yikes.
Personal insults flew. And it gets...
Oh, so that started then too. Okay. Yeah. So we've just been like this from the beginning. Nothing has changed in this country. Okay. Just...
We have some strong roots.
Yeah, I see that.
And just like today, it all gets played out in the press.
Of
right.
Course it does.
Like the press is saying their own stuff too. And it's a thing. And there are a lot of layers to it. Like it could really be its own story. So I'm just going to try and simplify as much as I can. But when the dust settles,
this is the cliff notes.
This is the cliff notes. When the dust settles at the end of the election period, Thomas Jefferson wins. You're going to hate this. I hate it. You're going to hate it. Everyone's going to hate it. He wins due to the notorious 3/5 clause in the Constitution, which counts enslaved persons as 3/5 of a person. So
get out.
The South
wait,
gets
hold up.
Numbers.
Oh, okay. For a second, I was like, wait, they let slaves vote? I was like, huh? But then I understand it get like electoral shit. I got you. Yeah. I got there eventually. I was like, what?
So when it becomes a tie, it's like it's a tie thing. It's a whole mess. It's a tie. It goes to through a voting process, and he gets extra votes. So Thomas Jefferson wins. And on the day of Jefferson's inauguration, John Adams takes an early carriage out of town. He doesn't stay for the ceremony. And the two men do not talk to each other for 12 years.
Isn't he his vice president?
No, he takes... So when there was that tie, it was a tie with Aaron Burr, who was another man within his party. So Burr becomes his vice president.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was like the runner-up. Then it would have been Adams. Oh. That's why I said there's a lot of layers to it. Like, just know that at the end of the day, Jefferson
so he is not the vice president. Got it.
He's not the vice president. No.
Okay.
Because he came like third, basically.
Okay.
So he leaves out of town. They don't talk for 12 years. Now, thankfully for Adams and Jefferson and for us history lovers, a mutual friend of the former presidents and fellow signer of the Declaration of Independence, Dr. Benjamin Rush, makes the reconciliation happen. He writes Adams and Jefferson like, it'd be a whole lot cooler if you guys talk to each other again and at least clear the air and explain what happened and what's going on. And that's what happens. That's what they do. So in January 1812, Adams sends a short little note over to TJ at Monticello, and they pick up their friendship again in their later years.
So Adams was the bigger person. Okay, just putting that out there. Not that I pick sides or anything. No, that's what we do in this country. We pick sides, god dang it.
Between them, there are 158 letters over the following 14 years. And you can read a handful of them. I've got them linked. You can't read every single one of them through my link, but a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I have them written as Jefferson and Adams letters.
Are those the letters that, like, he had to get secret codes from the Declaration of Independence? Or no?
You mean a national treasure?
Yeah.
Probably. There's probably some special letters somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
Because they were at odds with each other for the past 12 years and things got so ugly, the reconciliation starts slow. There's some small talk about like aging and how they're spending their days, family stuff. But it's over a year later in the summer of 1813 where they really dig into what fell apart and their legacy to America's Revolution and reflecting on this new nation that they helped build together.
Mhm.
Like, hey, we're now living in this new country that we had a hand in making.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And so after clearing the air on the bitterness that grew between them, they talk about the way the French Revolution ended, which was in 1799. But Napoleon is over in Europe calling himself emperor. And then later the Bourbons get reinstated to the throne. So like later, even after Napoleon, there's still someone on the throne in France, Don't worry, we're going to get into that little nugget in a little bit. But Adams is like, Jefferson, hey, how about that French Revolution? Yeah, power to the people, right? Emperor, people back on the throne.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a little like ribbing. I'm imagining he quilled out that little like winky face with the tongue out, like
probably
that French Revolution. So
what did we do without memes back then? Did you ever think about that? Or little emojis?
Let's draw it out. Or describe it with words. That'd be kind of fun and awkward.
Winky face with my tongue out.
Yeah. But they're also seeing early differences in how the early founding fathers, especially George Washington, was like, hey, don't ever let the country become a two-party country because it'll lead to ruin.
Well, and right? Here we are. But yes, carry on.
Remember that way back when? So
I bring it up every election year. Thank you, though. I'm glad you've done it this year because everyone's like, wait, no. And I'm like, no, listen, you're not listening, though.
So they're saying, look, we've already gotten so split and they're not working together already in early days. Like, this is going to lead.
Just wait till 1860.
And they're also like, hey, like, and it's weird because, like, they don't actually explicitly ever talk about slavery in the letters, but there are some hints to it of like, hey, there's eyes here that needs to be addressed and taken care of, and it's going to lead to some big problems. So they're already kind of seeing a civil war on the horizon.
Oh, yeah.
Despite their age and physical differences doing so, the pair continued to write each other. So even though they were old and their hands hurt, they were like, we're still going to do it. In fact, Jefferson wrote in 1823, crippled wrists and fingers make writing slow and laborious, but while writing to you, I lose the sense of these things and the recollection of ancient times when youth and health made happiness out of everything.
Wow.
Age.
I mean, nostalgia with your bros, man. Like, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. Jefferson gets sick with some intestinal disorder, and he falls into a coma on the evening of July 3rd, 1826, and passed away the following day, a little after noon.
Wow.
That next day, around noon, Adams collapsed in his reading chair and slipped into unconsciousness. He awoke later in the evening to say his final words, which were, Thomas Jefferson survives, or Thomas Jefferson still lives. It's debate on either one of those.
Yeah.
Unaware that his longtime friend had passed away only hours earlier.
Damn.
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both passed away on July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the signing of the document they created together that gave birth to a nation, the Declaration of Independence.
Damn. That's a tearjerker.
I know. When I was trying to practice that, reading through my stuff earlier, I would always get a little misty. I was like, oh, those kids. Yeah, he either said Thomas Jefferson still lives or survives, or Thomas Jefferson still lives.
Damn.
Yeah, and he had just died a few hours earlier, but they died on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration.
At the same time as well.
Yeah, at noon, like he died, and then he got sick, so or fell unconscious. And in that revolutionary spirit, here we go. I'm tying into the next one. We are going to recount the love of America's favorite fighting Frenchman, the Marquis de Lafayette.
I don't know who this is.
Oh, what? The Marquis? Oh, girl. The Marquis de Lafayette. So it's him. And
do we have any listeners in France?
We do, which is why I'm sweating a little bit right now. Here we go. Okay, Marie Adrienne Francois de Noailles. Or Noel. I heard it's pronounced two ways by people.
Here's the thing: is the French will give it to you in French, Noailles, and then they'll give it to you in like what an English person can handle French.
Okay,
they do that Noel. To you.
I'm gonna go with Noailles. I like that better.
Yeah, that's probably the real. Anyway. Did you ask Julian?
Because I asked Julian. That's what Julian said. Yeah.
Okay, well then he's right because Julian's never wrong. Because that's where I went for all my shit. I was like, Okay. Today we are looking at how to pronounce. I love him. That's seriously though, like without it, thank you. I've listened to it a lot.
Beautiful.
Shout out to Julian.
Like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams that we previously talked about, Lafayette, who was born, Marie Joseph Paul Yves Roche Gilbert de Motier. Ooh.
All right, you got it out, man.
Lafayette. But he was born in that revolutionary generation. Okay, he's a contemporary of Jefferson and Adams, and very much involved with the Revolution, both American Revolution and the French Revolution.
Do you know the French Revolution comes up in my story as well?
How about this? There's so much going on here.
There is.
So this story came from our friend Brennan Dowd at History Nerds United. So thank you.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of his favorite. This is like his big love story. He's even written about it himself. So thank you, Brendan, for this one.
Yeah, if you people haven't listened, these people are great and have an excellent sense of humor. You should definitely. They do.
Yeah. Young Lafayette was born into the wealthy noble Motier family who went by their noble title of Lafayette. But his parents died when he was quite young, and he inherits a sizable fortune and the title of Marquis. Ta-da! As an orphan, he joins the French army at the age of 14, and at 16, he marries the 14-year-old Adrienne de Noailles.
They were only 2 years apart. It's unheard of.
Yeah. But also, she's still pretty young for this, even at this time, is pretty young. And because of how young she is, there's a clause in the marriage contract that the newlyweds live in their home, the Hotel de Noailles, for like the first year or so, I think it was. So, like, let's wait this out. But because of the title and the, you know what I mean, let's make this match happen.
Yeah, because her body's not ready for childbearing is where this is going, people. I'm just going to fucking come out and say it. A 16-year-old doesn't need to be banging a 14-year-old. And there we have it. So they're apart for a year. I did it. You didn't have to. Carry on.
But for Lafayette, he's already very wealthy and titled, but by marrying Adrienne, he's married into a very wealthy family who are also relatives of French royalty. So that's handy, right?
Isn't everybody, though?
Well, I mean, there's like noble titles, but they're more like direct to that line.
Gotcha.
Okay. He retires with the rank of captain and he joins the court at Versailles. And he likes the court life, sure. Like, all right, cool. But I'm much more excited about what's going on over in our historic enemy, England's colonies over across the ocean here. What's going on over there? Because
it's the talk of the town.
And again, England, France, just historic enemies. They just don't like each other. You can even have those two football teams go against each other, and there's an extra heat going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just you wait for my story.
Now, being a nobleman, he needed to ask the king for permission to like go and decide to join another country's fight, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So he asked Louis the 16th. There you go. Count my numbers real quick. He asked Louis the 16th to go fight, but neither the king nor his father-in-law, Monsieur de Noailles, wanted him to go. But he's like,
well,
I'm still going to go.
Yeah, like, screw you guys, I'm going.
He doesn't listen. So he goes and he funds his own ship. He stocks it up and he's like, all right, I'll make my own way over there. And he shows up at Continental Congress like what can I do to help? I will serve at my own expense.
What can I do to help?
Oh, yeah. And they're like, oh, you will serve at your own expense, because they were broke. They're like, we can't pay you.
We didn't have money.
They're like, but we're going to make you major general with the understanding that you won't actually command any troops. He's sent to be the chief aide to General Washington, who ends up becoming his adoptive daddy, and he, proves his worth, and Washington sends him back home to France to drum up some support for the American cause. Adrienne, meanwhile, in case anyone's interested what she's got going on, she's her period for a while, like while he's in and out of America doing the revolutionary thing, she's giving birth to the couple's children, who are, for the most part, born pretty close together, and over the course of his coming and going.
I was going to say, I was like, they had time for children?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing how they did it, but yeah. So she's birthing and raising these kids and holding things down.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah.
This world was built on the backbones of women.
The family, as part of the court, have been living in Versailles, and when Lafayette shows up, he comes back home, the king arrests him for going against his orders. He's like, I told you not to leave. Why did you leave?
I had a feeling.
You're under arrest, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure Adrienne's been putting up with a little bit of the ire from that too. I don't know that for sure, but I feel like she's living in the king's house, and he's mad at her husband. There's probably some weird dynamics there.
Well, it's not her fault.
But, yeah. Still. Lafayette gets out of it by saying, I can give you a firsthand account of everything that's going on, and you'll forgive me because I've actually seen it with my eyes. And he does, actually. The king's like, all right, sure.
I've got some hot goss. All right, good enough. Grab the tea. Let's do this.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all it takes to get out of trouble.
Oh, yeah. The court loves some gossip.
Yes, they do.
So the king isn't really too into Lafayette's ideas about what France can do to help. Because Lafayette's like, we should do this, we should do that. He had some big ideas. And the king's like, maybe let's pump the brakes. But what I will help with is sending you to America with supplies, arms, ammunition, some troops, some naval help. Like, yeah, we can do these things. He had some pretty big invasion plans. The whole thing. Anyway, so Lafayette returns back to America with these things. And he ends up playing a key role in Cornwallis's surrender at Yorktown. And he returns back to France in 1782 as a fucking war hero.
Damn.
They're like, oh, they're like the hype boys. I suck on that.
Lafayette.
Yeah. But unfortunately, everyone, like his wife's happy to have him back home. Everyone's happy. He's back. Unfortunately, he takes up a mistress pretty much right away.
Come on.
I know. Like,
you're doing great up until this. You're going to do your wife dirty like that? Come on, mate.
And then on top of that, he's traveling around a lot. So he goes back and forth to visit George Washington. And at some point, and then he's home for a brief time. And he's splitting his time when he is back between the mistress and Adrienne. And it's a whole thing. And it's like, And Lafayette's still got revolution bubbling in him,
Yeah.
Back, and he becomes the political leader for an anti-absolutism movement, which is basically power to the people and not one person in absolute
power.
That'll
make the king happy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know. He's like
all over the place. Yeah, he is.
And by the end of one of these anti-absolutism movements, one of their meetings in 1789, the French Revolution pretty much begins at this sort of point. The storming of the Bastille prison, takes place not too long after, and Lafayette, who's still Mr. Popular with the people, is elected head of the National Guard. Now, you remember learning about the Reign of Terror in school, right?
Nope.
No?
Wait, are you talking like the French one?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
We never ever talked about it. I know nothing of French history except what this podcast has taught me, which is a sad thing because it's often tied into our history. Mm-hmm. So there's our education system's failure. So
okay, well, hey, all I've really got to say about it is that just in case you thought Reign of Terror was a misnomer or an overreaction in like naming just to sound like big and snazzy for a history book or like like a textbook headline, it's not. It was a reign of terror. It was so many deaths and just everyone's afraid. It was terrible. And also remember how I said in the beginning of the story that the Noailles are not only noble, but they're related to French royalty.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to keep that in your back pocket. the French Revolution is a big topic. Like,
Yeah.
and this is already a long enough section as it is, like I'm going to be talking a lot tonight. So it's a huge topic and a lot of moving parts and changes to who's controlling what. For simplicity's sake, for our episode today, I'm just going to say these things. France is not only in its own revolution, but is also in a war outside of its borders against Austria and Prussia.
Okay.
Okay. 2, the Marquis is getting in and out of trouble with the revolutionaries. They're hot and cold with him. Sometimes they love him, sometimes they hate him. The pendulum is swinging wildly, and Lafayette is more trying to just stay in the middle of the road with all of it. He doesn't want all the violence and everything. He's like, I want this revolution to be like America's revolution. Like, let's calm it down a little bit. Yeah. Which is, of course, it wasn't without its violence. Of course not. But it's not a reign of terror, right?
Yeah, they tarred and feathered people, though. It happened.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm saying it's not without its violence, but we're not mass murdering entire classes of people and everything. So
yeah, France really upped the ante with that one.
But he gets on the wrong side of the Jacobin revolutionaries, who now rule France at this point, are a little more extreme. And he has to flee the country. Now, because
they'll kill him.
Yeah. Because France is now at war with also Austria and Prussia as well, too. When he leaves the country, he's captured and imprisoned for the next 5 years in Austria.
Okay.
Adrienne herself, back in France, is jailed with her family during the Reign of Terror, and she survives her mother, her grandmother, and her sister all being executed by guillotine.
So, I'm sorry. I only know what the movie Marie Antoinette and Les Miserables. That's all I know about French history, which is a pathetic amount, I'm sure. But I know that it happened. So the French Revolution was that Marie Antoinette's time, and they pulled them out and beheaded all of them. Yeah. Ripped him out of the carriage, killed the kids, killed her, killed everybody.
Not the kids. No, the kids were scattered. They didn't have great lives afterwards.
I thought they beheaded them too.
There's a couple other. One was sent to somebody who was horribly abusive to him, and then I think the other girl was sent out to the country or something like that. And maybe one of them died, but they did kill the king and the queen. Yeah. And that was the thing which
they did same thing to Anastasia's family up in Russia. So,
well, right. Yeah. So these are huge revolutions that are literally like toppling the entire system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Lafayette was born in the midst of all of this, born before it, is living it.
He is living it now.
Okay. So he would have known Marie Antoinette.
Yeah. So here's let me give you a timeline here real quick. So Lafayette was born pre-revolution time.
What was the year?
And he was born in.
It just helps me keep it all straight.
Sure.
You're gonna have the same thing with my story, by the way. You're gonna be like, wait.
I didn't write down the year. I didn't write down the year, but he's basically in his 20s when he helps the American Revolution, which is like 1775,
1770s, yeah.
So he takes part in the American Revolution, helps everybody out. America's now a free country. Mm-hmm. He goes back to France.
Their revolution starts.
Then their revolution starts.
Okay, and because he's related to royalty, they're ready to guillotine him as well. But somehow his wife and children have survived. However, her family has not.
Yes.
Got it.
Her family has not. She and her children have survived miraculously, which is great. He was hot and cold with the revolutionaries. They loved him. They hated him. And then when they
because he wasn't revolutionary enough.
Right. Yes.
Because he was like, maybe we don't need to kill everyone. And they were like, fuck you.
Get out. Yeah. So he flees, but gets captured and imprisoned in Austria. And she's imprisoned in France. She sees nearly all of her family killed and miraculously survives with her kids.
Okay.
Their children, right? So.
Okay. Isn't there a love story coming into this?
Yeah. This is a story about just steadfast. There's no fireworks here, really. This is just steadfast, ride or die sort of love. Okay.
Gotcha.
So she is released about a year later. She finds her 2 daughters who were in hiding with a family member. And her son, George Washington, they named him George Washington. He goes.
Of course, they did.
So he's safe off in America. She's got her 2 daughters. They go to Austria to go and win her husband's freedom. Win it. I don't know what she's going to do. Joust, but sword fight. But she's trying to petition for her husband's freedom.
Yeah.
but they won't give it. So she says, okay, well, let us stay with him. So she voluntarily puts herself and her two older daughters in prison with Lafayette so they can be together.
Okay.
She does so for 2 of the 5 years that he's imprisoned. So it's her last 2 years. And it's really the first time in their marriage that it's like just them and their family. He's not leaving on other adventures or revolutions, no political meetings, no mistresses. It's just them and no one go. And so they end up making this like little home as much as they can in this little prison barracks that they live in for a couple of years until Napoleon Bonaparte's intervention. Here he is, Napoleon. And the Marquis is freed in September 1795. Now, I think there's probably like, yes, she wanted the family all to be together, but I also think Adrian might have been pretty smart about this, saying like, they are not going to be happy that a woman and her kids are in a jail cell, you know, like a noble woman, like, oh, the lows that she's been brought to and her children, oh, you know, and there's going to be some commotion about it, which was kind of the case.
Oh, yeah.
So September 1797, just so your timeline is here, they're freed. Now, even though this is great news, the relationship with Napoleon is kind of like a frenemies sort of situation. Like, Napoleon gets Lafayette free, but he's like, I don't want you to return to France because you might still be popular enough to like sway what happens with me and what I'm doing on my big scale of conquering. So I really can't have that right now, Lafayette. So I just need you to not go back home. So Lafayette doesn't really do permission, as we've noticed before, and he goes back anyway.
Yep, of course he does.
He's like, I just want a quiet life. Like, leave me the fuck alone. I just want to like go and live my life, which is not wealthy any longer. Like, I have no money.
Yeah.
I have no influence and power. I just want to live in my country home.
Peacefully.
Anyway, peacefully. Yeah. Despite both Napoleon and Thomas Jefferson, so both guys over the seas, they both wanted him for various roles in government. Lafayette's like, no, I'm good. I'm done. I've seen too many things. Like, I'm done with this. Yeah. He's no longer interested in politics and revolution and everything. And instead he just wants to
calm down.
He's calmed down. He's like, I just want to hang out with my wife, Adrian, and like be with her. Right? Good, Lafayette. Goodness gracious.
You need more of that energy in your life.
Yeah. So anyway, Adrian, unfortunately, had a recurrence of an illness that first struck when she was at the prison. And so for the rest of her life, she'd be in and out of these illness, like fevers, high fevers that would make her delusional and everything. It was like really sad. At the end of her life, she really professes her love for Lafayette. She says, if you don't think you are loved enough, you will have to blame God for my shortcomings, for he made me what I am. What a fate to have been your wife. I have loved you in the Christian sense, in the worldly sense, and passionately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lafayette, like, you're out banging other hoes like an asshole.
And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm just like, oh, Adrian. She dies. That was perfect. Thank you. She dies on Christmas Eve, 1807. And her husband, Lafayette, survives her by 27 years.
Oh my gosh.
He walls up her room in the house. So it just so people like can't wander on in there and go, oh, what's in here? So like guests would wander in. It wasn't completely blocked off because it was said, you know, that depending on the veracity of some of these accounts, but it was said that he would spend Christmas Eve in her room and would stay there all night. So it wasn't like inaccessible, but yeah. Wow. Yeah. Lafayette and Adrian. Thanks, Brendan.
Right?
I'm going to pluck, here's our third, it's like our trilogy here. I'm going to pluck out another figure that we've talked about in this episode. And that is Napoleon Bonaparte.
Here he is.
Here he is. I know earlier I called him a little nugget. I just did that for all the history bros. But like, he wasn't short. And I'm like, I know he wasn't short.
He wasn't?
No, he was average height for the time.
Incidentally, he was also average. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
That's right. Yes. Napoleon Bonaparte and his wife, Josephine. Now, holy moly, these two are just a roller coaster of everything. This is one of those ones where even, I don't know, I feel like if you're a history nerd, even if you don't really know the story of Napoleon or Josephine, like you kind of have the understanding of how they were with each other, like how much is going on here. Maybe
I didn't even know his wife's name, so that's what you're dealing with over here. I know his horse's name, but not his wife. But that's pretty typical for me. So again, my knowledge of French history is not a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like I didn't really know anything about Napoleon. I hadn't gone into the depths of the complex character that is Napoleon Bonaparte. He's an interesting one for sure, but I've not gotten there in my life yet.
Okay.
So this was fun. And then this one was suggested by TK at For the Love of History, who is just a light in the world. Oh my goodness. And
I love the History's Hotline. Like, those are my favorites. I love those.
Too. She has such amazing content. And she said, like, and this is to TK's credit, like if you know anything about her and the content that she creates, you might be like, oh, Napoleon and Josephine. That's kind of like interesting that's like her favorite pick. Now she said, this is not my favorite love story. She's like, but you're going to have some fun with it. Like, this is for you, basically. And I really appreciate that. So bless you, TK. This one was a great time. Dysfunctional, but great. What a rabbit hole. So let's do the Cliff Notes version of their backgrounds. Okay, just, again, gotta know who we're talking about to get to where we're going. Napoleon Bonaparte. He's rising up out of the French Revolution. He's a military commander who later pronounced himself Emperor of France and the French Empire in 1804.
Okay.
Now, that's very oversimplified, but
yes. So he wasn't short. He was average. Short. Okay.
He was average.
So was he of royal lineage or no?
No.
Interesting.
I'll talk to you about that a little bit more in a second. He was not, but Josephine is not royal, but aristocratic. She's actually born Marie Josephine Rose Tascher de la Pagarie. Ooh. She's going to get called Josephine the rest of the time because that was not great. But she's born on her family's sugar plantation, in Martinique, and she moves to France for an arranged marriage to a nobleman who was not nice to her. So this guy, he's just like an all-around shit. He's not nice to her. We don't even need to talk about his name. It's not important, but we just need to know that she was married before Napoleon. And also, this plays a perfect little catalyst too. Not perfect, but like it says a lot to her character afterwards and the relationships that she has, is that she and her husband that she separates from, like the court's like, oh yeah, you're right, he's not nice to you, you can definitely separate.
No shit.
They get thrown into jail during the Reign of Terror because they're aristocrats. He's executed and she's about to be executed, except, this is wild, Robespierre, who is a member of the Jacobin Party that I mentioned earlier, the ones who were in charge of the government and were more extreme. He's also like the leader of the Reign of Terror. Okay. So he's then
he was a murdering lunatic.
Yeah, he's not great. So he's executed. Right? That's what I'm saying. Reign of Terror is wild. Like Robespierre is like the spearhead of the Reign of Terror. And then I'm pretty sure like the party then probably falls and then they kill him. And that's when the Reign of Terror kind of officially ends. Calms down because he is no longer like witch hunting everybody. Yeah. So anyway, because he's killed, she is spared. But she's been in prison, and prison is really rough and scary, and the experience has traumatized her. It's made her she has bad teeth, I read too. So like, I'm sure that's not nice. It's not good for your health.
So she came out with bad health after prison.
Well, yeah. Okay. I wouldn't. She doesn't have any stories of like having bad health or like health episodes later in her life, but just that she's banged up afterwards.
Probably malnourished.
Yeah, and she doesn't have any money. She's also a widowed mother of two. Money's all gone. She's traumatized from nearly being put to death. It's a whole thing. I understand it, and she needs a hero. Cue the Bonnie Tyler.
Don't let me get on that. Blake says that's part of my Thirsty 80s playlist, and he can't stand. I won't say he can't stand it, but he's just like, again, he hears it at least once a week.
Oh yeah. Well, she needs a hero, and so he comes right in. Marengo's hooves on the cobblestones. almost of Napoleon. So she decides that the best thing to do for herself and her children is to lean into this revolutionary spirit, which has taken a hold of everybody. And she becomes mistress to one of its leaders, who is also a mentor to the up-and-coming young general, Napoleon. So she's having an affair with Paul Barras, who is a mentor to Napoleon. And then they introduce, this is my...
Out of self-preservation, it sounds like.
Yeah, she's I mean, she might have really liked some of these people, but it's with the intent of like, I need to like survive and my kids need to survive, basically. So we need to get involved with the revolutionaries, because otherwise it's not going to go so well. So they are introduced, Napoleon and Josephine. The most popular story being that they met at a party, that they were introduced by Barras. She's 6 years Napoleon's senior. She's 32 years old, which, I mean, wouldn't really be a big deal, but for him to like go after an older widow.
He likes a challenge.
Yeah, it was kind of, a bit scandalous, but anyway.
He's a cougar hunter.
She's encouraged to marry him. Like, hey, look, this is a good match for you. Like, he's up and coming. This can be, and she's like, I'm not really that into him. But Napoleon, on the other hand, he's besotted. Besotted. He is besotted. And he wins her over by showering her with gifts. And he was really great with her kids. Like, I guess he was like really playful and really sweet. So she's like, all right,
Listen, girl, you're not going to find better than that. I'm just going to put that out there.
I know, it's pretty good. I was like, all right.
If he's good with your kids, that says a lot.
Yeah. Now, after what I assume to be like their first night together, he writes her a letter. It's the first of many horny letters that he sent.
Oh, my.
Her. Okay, you ready? Here we go. I'm blushing again. My waking thoughts are all of thee. Your portrait and the remembrance of last night's delirium have robbed my senses of repose. Sweet and incomparable Josephine, what an extraordinary influence you have over my heart. Are you vexed? Do I see you sad? Are you ill at ease? My soul is broken with grief, and there is no rest for your lover. But there is more for me when, delivering ourselves up to the deep feelings with which master me, I breathe out upon your lips, upon your heart, a flame which burns me up. It was this past night I realized that your portrait was not you. You start at noon. I shall see you in 3 hours. Meanwhile, mio dolce amor. That's my sweet love in Italian. Accept 1,000 kisses, but give me none, for they fire my blood. Ooh.
That was poetic as fuck. Nobody writes me horny letters like that. Like, I'm gonna tell Blake, be like, you ever Googled Napoleon's love letters? Why? Just curious. Maybe you should.
I love at the end, he's like, accept 1,000 kisses, but give me none, for they fire my blood. So you're like, ooh, he kind of likes playing, likes the hard to get kind of thing, He
does.
Like,
that's why he likes her, and she, meanwhile, was like,
yeah. Mm-hmm. The chase, right? And that's his first letter, to her, and right before they marry. And they were married 2 months after this first meeting, and he immediately leaves Paris to join his army.
Oh.
He writes Josephine constantly, sometimes like more than once in a day. And his letters are always kind of flowery like that. He's like always professing his love for her.
How good would it feel? Do you know how many French, not just Frenchmen, but noblemen picked up mistresses and whatnot? Like, girl, it's not so bad.
Yeah, he is so mad for her. He is so into her.
I didn't realize he was so sweet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Napoleon's one of those people in history that we call a complex character. He's got some things where you're like, oh no, but with Josephine.
See, I don't know about no.
Yeah. So he's news from the army, from his family, what's going on. He's just keeping in touch with her, and then just professions of love, head over freaking heels for his wife. Right.
Yeah.
But Josephine, she's kind of getting the ick from all the letters. She gets so many letters that she's kind of embarrassed by it. She's like, ooh, he's like a a lovesick little puppy. It's kind of embarrassing. He's like humping my leg kind of thing. And so she's kind of detached from the whole thing. And her tone is totally different. Like, he's smitten kittens.
Yeah.
And she writes to him in a more formal manner. And he notices this, and he often mentions it. It like really hurts his feelings. He says, for example, I'm not satisfied with your last letter. It is as cold as friendship. Or it is cold as friendship. Like, you don't love me. You just want to, it's like a friend letter. And in another one, he calls her out for using the formal vous for you, like VUS, which is like in like usted or ustedes in Spanish, you know, like it's a formal you. And he's like, formal? You're using the formal tone with me? Really? It seems Josephine there, has taken up a lover on the side in the young and dashing lieutenant, Hippolyte Charles. I hope I got that somewhat right. And he even comes with Josephine when she goes to Italy to visit Napoleon in 1796. Like, he accompanies her. And Napoleon gets a bit suspicious.
Why do I feel bad for him right now?
I know. I did feel like
all he wants to do is find someone to like give his love to, and she's like, "You're a meal ticket," and it's like, damn.
Yeah, it does feel like that. It's really sad,
especially when he was good with your kids and everything. Like,
yeah. So he gets a bit suspicious and starts having her letters opened and having her followed, but he doesn't find anything else out as of yet. But Josephine's perpetual coldness and indifference to him really starts to create a roller coaster of emotions for him.
Yeah.
He says things like, I don't love you anymore. On the contrary, I detest you. You are a vile, mean, beastly slut. You don't write to me at all. You don't love your husband. And then, in the same letter, soon, I hope, I will be holding you in my arms. Then I will cover you with a million hot kisses, burning like the equator. Like, he's like, I really love you, but man, you're pissing me off.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 years later, he learns of her affair and confronts her. And she manages to smooth things over with him, but she doesn't end things with the lieutenant. He doesn't know this. And he's in Egypt when he finds out that she's still cheating. And he writes to his brother about it. And he's like, I'm going to have to divorce her. Like, this is terrible. But guess what? The letter gets intercepted by the English.
Oh, shit.
Who are historic, again, France, England, historic enemies. And the London newspapers print the letter.
Oh.
And they have a field day with it.
Poor Napoleon, dude. Like, this guy can't catch a break.
Like, Trey embarrassing, you know what I mean? So then he also starts having affairs. And this seemed like that shakes things up for Josephine. Like, for whatever reason, just like, oh, when he starts having affairs, she's like, oh, wait a second. I've got to, like, consider what I'm doing here. And
yeah, screw you.
But anyway. So Napoleon then starts acting distant, and then he becomes dictator of France with his conquests. And as head of the First Council in 1799, which is the end of the French Revolution, Napoleon now takes over. And it's as if Josephine then realizes that her control and power might slip away if Napoleon were to leave her. He is my connection to power. I need to stick with him, kind of thing. So it seems like she tries to maybe get on his good side again. She does manage to talk him out of divorcing her, but it's like a little too late because Napoleon's now flaunting his mistresses and like the details of like what they're doing. He's like, yeah, how about that? You like hearing about that? And then he ends up taking this really domineering control of her life. Like, he controls her social life, when she can leave, who she's seen, opens her letters. But he also is realizing that, you know, she is things that he isn't. You know what I mean? Like, they need each other. She has grace and etiquette and diplomatic ties. She's like the aristocracy. She's likable by society. And he kind of needs that, and she needs him.
She's not that likable.
I know. It's really toxic and manipulative. In 1804, he crowns himself emperor. Boom. Puts the crown on his head.
A little bit of ego, but all right.
Puts the crown of empress on Josephine's head. But things are bad. Nothing's really gotten better between them. And they come to a head in the years following his self-coronation, you know. He's now established, by doing so, he's now established a hereditary empire, meaning that he needs to have an heir to take his place.
Right.
Like a king or queen would, right? You know, like that's now established. Josephine's not had any children. with Napoleon. She has 2 of her own from a previous marriage, but they're not Napoleon's children.
No.
It's a really precarious position. You know, when the new empire you've just conquered is now made fully reliant upon like whether your wife has an heir. You know, he could be killed by, you know, on the battlefield because he's, you know, doing that by an assassin. He could just drop dead from, you know,
natural causes.
Day, right. You know, so it's a bit of a shaky little foundation to try and build things on, right?
Yeah.
So 2 years later, his mistress, he's still got mistresses here, his mistress has a child.
Yep.
Eek, which means that it was like, they're like, oh, well, maybe Napoleon's got a, you know, with the swimmers, maybe he's not very fertile, whatever. So then they showed that, that there's nothing wrong with Napoleon. He can get a woman pregnant. It's her.
Yeah.
You know, it's gross, but that was what happened. So the couple divorced in 1809, but she keeps the title of Empress. She keeps her home, and he gives her an allowance.
That was very generous of him.
Yeah. He says, far from ever causing cause for complaint, I can, to the contrary, only congratulate myself on the devotion and tenderness of my beloved wife. Is what he says about her at the divorce. And then she has similar nice things. So they say like niceties to each other of like, hey, it's been real. This didn't work out, but like, I wish you the best kind of energy about it. Which is nice, I guess. You know, it's
about as good as it could get.
Better, right? In 1810, Napoleon marries Marie Louise of Austria by proxy, and she gives birth to Napoleon II. Now, sorry, I forgot to mention earlier, the first child with his mistress, the one that was like settled the divorce with Josephine, that child dies later, which is like really a heartbreak. Josephine lived out her days in Paris, but she stayed on good terms with her ex. She was heartbroken to learn of his exile to Elba in 1814, and she dies from pneumonia a few weeks later.
Oh.
Her last words being, Bonaparte, Elba, King of Rome. 7 years later, Napoleon dies with a similar parting statement. France, the army, head of the army, Josephine. So I want to end my portion of the episode. It's been real long, I know. But I'm going to end it with a real bloody gorgeous one. Just end it on a high note. And to do that, we're going to fast forward a century from the Bonapartes to 1907.
Okay.
We're going to briefly start in America for our first little paragraph here, but we're going to finish it up where we all began, and that is in Paris, France. 1907, San Francisco. The city's a friggin' mess because of the great San Francisco earthquake and then the subsequent fires, all of that from a year prior.
Oh my.
The once budding concert pianist Alice B. Toklas packed up and left to see what new life she could find in Paris. There she almost immediately meets writer and fellow San Fran expat Gertrude Stein, and they were taken with each other right away. So this is the beautiful love story of Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas. So this one comes from Derek, at a co-host at History's Greatest Idiots.
Yep.
So Derek's amazing. He put this one on there, and I was like, yes, this is so good. So thank you, Derek, for this one. You can end it on a beautiful little love note here. So they're taken with each other right away. And Alice accepts Gertrude's invitation to come over the next day. Hey, come over to my house. And she's like, sure thing, I'm in, sis. And she goes over to her house every day for the next 3
these
years.
are two ladies.
Yes.
Oh, I missed that totally. As I was like, wee.
Alice B.
Gotcha.
Toklas and Gertrude Stein. Yep.
That was my lack of attention. I apologize.
It's good. You're all right. And it is the beginning of a nearly 40-year-long love story and partnership. And what a partnership it was, you guys. Okay, so Toklas taught herself to type so she could transcribe Stein's manuscripts because Stein was a writer. And she just basically devotes her life to Stein's writing and Stein herself. She manages the household, takes care of her, is just like, comes over every day to type for her.
Yeah.
And they would take long walks together through the city. And after a year of her coming over every day and, this partnership, this friendship that they have, Gertrude Stein proposes to Alice on one of these walks. And unfortunately, it wouldn't be something that was legally recognized in the eyes of the government at that time.
I was going to ask,
for them,
was France different? But
so like it wasn't legally recognized, but as far as they're concerned, like we're married to each other.
Yeah.
So She proposes. She accepts. And Alice would continue to visit daily Gertrude at her home that she shared with her brother Leo.
Yeah.
And they would transcribe manuscripts, and they would write love notes to each other and call each other pet names and stuff. It was really cute. And they lived in Paris like in the early 20th century, which like is the place to be.
I was going to say it's probably the best
Maybe
time to
not
be.
later, but very early part of the 20th century, especially like post World War I. That was the whole thing. But it was like a hub of music and writers and artists, and they're all like basking in each other's sunshine and sharing ideas. Mostly after post World War I, but like in the early years too. And lots and lots of drinks.
Yeah.
In general, like in this greater time period, we have Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yep.
They're not all great people, but they were all creatives.
No, they all did a lot of like literary work and stuff. So yeah.
Josephine Baker, James Joyce, Henry Matisse, Igor Stravinsky. So they were all like great artists of their time. And I just like, to be a fly on the wall, because they would have these literary and artistic salons. They would invite
that's
them
amazing.
Over and be like,
let's be cool together.
Let's sit and have ideas like what we do here in the Smoke Circle. This is our salon,
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, can I just like come and like put the sugar cubes out for your absinthe? Can I just, anyway. But for 3 years, Toklas went to visit Gertrude. And then for 3 more years, her and Alice lived together with Leo in the home. And then after those 3 years, Leo moved out and the 2 women lived together. Rewind a little bit, but World War I rolls around and the women like jump right into work helping out. They're like, right, what can we do? They take hospital supplies back and forth with this like old car that they buy. And so they're like doing that, helping out. Toklas takes over managing the household, taking care of the dogs, decorating the home. They have a real eye for art, so they're buying their friends' art. Casual.
As you do, yes.
As you do, right? Because they were basically like, fuck clothes, fuck expensive things. We don't need that. Like, we're going to put our money into art. We don't have a lot of money. What money we do have, we're going to put it into art. We're going to support our artist friends because we love art. We love things that are beautiful up on our walls. And of course, the artists that they're buying are Picasso, Matisse.
I was just going to say, I was like, the stuff they're getting is like really good too. It's not casual.
And in the 30s, Stein writes the autobiography of Alice B. Toklas, which was an account of their life together, but through Toklas's point of view. And this is Gertrude Stein's big work, at least what makes her famous over in America. And it became highly publicized and led to a U.S. book tour. And they met, stars of the time like Charlie Chaplin and Eleanor Roosevelt and like big names. But it also then created speculation at Stein's roommate, air quotes, and like what the relationship was. Like, who are these? Like, they're just friends, right? Are they just roommates? What's good? Anyway.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Now back in France.
But it's also none of your business.
Back in France, Nazis roll into France in 1940, which was scary in multiple ways because one, fuck Nazis. No one likes Nazis.
Yeah.
But 2, they were gay. They were a lesbian couple together, living together. And 3, they're both Jewish.
Oh, shit.
They're also now in their 60s. So it makes like mobilizing a little different. Like but they do manage to flee the city and hide out in a little remote area of France. They sold their art to like buy supplies off the black market so they could survive and have food.
Yeah.
But they survived the war. They come back to the city and they just try to resume their lives. Everyone's just trying to pick up the pieces. But then Stein was diagnosed with stomach cancer and died in surgery in 1946. Stein willed her entire estate to Toklas, but poor Alice, this breaks my heart. Not only did she lose the love of her life after being together like just shy of 40 years, but because their common law marriage wasn't recognized,
she couldn't.
Alice didn't really receive it. At least like the art was the big thing because the art would have been how she made money.
Yeah.
She basically like lived off of, Stein was.
I thought they were supposed to do whatever the will says. So where did it go?
I think her family fought for him. Her family was like, no, like they shouldn't go to her lady friend, whoever she is.
No, don't do your beloved's last wishes or anything. Like,
I know you'd think you'd go off the will, but the family fought for the art
oh, I'm
pieces,
just saying
and
the family. If they're really your family, that whatever. Anyway,
well,
I'll just
families get weird about wills. I don't know. I'm just gonna keep that to myself.
Well,
But
we won't.
yeah, that's what I read. I should say that's what I've read in my sources, that the family asked for the art, but yeah, so she lost a lot of the collection.
Yeah,
and
well, at least it didn't go to the Nazis.
Right?
Didn't they steal a ton of shit that we still haven't found?
Yeah, that's a good story.
Well, put it down. Write that on your list. I have it,
girl. I've got the longest list you'll ever see in your life.
I bet you do. Mine's probably like a pittance compared to yours.
But anyway, so I know that she didn't receive most of the art, if not any of it. I don't know. But like I mentioned earlier, they collected art. Like they made that collection together. Not only would that have helped Alice,
financially
support herself, yeah, but is also like probably reminded her of her love,
It's something they built together.
So that just makes me sad in a few ways. But I digress. Anyway, Toklas spends her remaining years just upholding Stein's legacy. Toklas herself, because she was connected to Stein, made her kind of like a minor celebrity of sorts. Like people knew her name because it was connected to Gertrude Stein's. But she really just supported Stein's legacy and her writing the rest of her life. Although she did financially struggle, she did do a little writing of her own, including the Alice B. Toklas cookbook, which includes a recipe for hashish fudge that was given to her by a fellow artist friend, and is also so on the nose for post-World War II Paris, because hashish was like the thing there, and absinthe and whatnot.
Yeah.
But and I may have possibly included the recipe in the show notes for like historical documentation.
For history, of course.
For history, So, Alice B. Toklas passed away in March of 1967, 27 years after the death of Gertrude. She is buried next to Stein in Paris and had her name inscribed on the back of Gertrude's tombstone.
Oh.
So she's just like staying connected with her in that way. So thank you, everybody, for those. That was so much fun. I know it was like a long...
Everybody had really good choices.
They did. And I loved that it wasn't perfect love.
No.
None of them was like a perfect... I should say that, Alice and Gertrude are probably as close as we can get with
probably
that was pretty perfect love. But what I really appreciated about it was that it wasn't fairy tale. It was human. It was human love, it's sometimes messy and complicated and imperfect, hot and cold, touch and go. Some are tragic, but it was human at the end of the day. And I think that's like just fireworks for history right there, is the humanity of it all. So thank you, everybody, for that one. That was absolutely fantastic for me, and I hope you all enjoyed that as well. Happy Valentine's Day. Oh, hey there. How are you? It's your favorite history Valentine. I hope you enjoyed our little trip through history's great love stories. Some really interesting ones in there. Thank you to all of you who gave us a suggestion. They were fantastic. And if you'd like to get to know the people that made those suggestions, I've put a link to their social media in our show notes so you can visit and see what history content that they are creating. We are so glad to have you here in the Smoke Circle. And before you finish this episode, we would love it if you can make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, rating, reviewing, all these really fantastic things that help support our show and to help make sure that you're getting more episodes from your Midwestern Stoner History Sisters. That's us. And speaking of more, we are now on Patreon. So over on Patreon, you can get more content from us behind the scenes, interviews that we have with our guests, half-baked history episodes, which are our little mini bonus episodes. And we would love it if you came over there and became a best bud. It's the Best Buds Club. That's patreon.com/hightailing through history. Or you can just search Hightailing Through History in their search bar and you'll find us. And of course, our Patreon and all of our social media accounts are all linked directly below in our show notes. So please connect with us over there. And for Katie's portion tonight, she is taking us way back in time to the Norman conquest of England. And with that said, let's puff pass it on to part 2. And we're back. Part 2. We're back for the second. Sorry, it was a very long first section from me, but we're back. We're back for part 2 with Katie's. And I'm back with a fresh cup of coffee, a refresher on the edible. I'm older. I'm wiser now. I've got my little notebook next to me because Katie says I'm going to need some scratch paper for hers. So
yeah, I just
Katie,
want
what
to
you
make
got?
sure that like you can. Have you ever seen Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Okay. I was so confused with the whole Targaryen like family line and the
Yeah.
Stark, and then finally my buddy Mark is like, listen, here's the deal. And he like drew it out for me, and I still have the drawing because he has the Mad King with like a little like crown and like angry eyebrows and a pitchfork. Like, and so that's like the stick figure of the family tree on how Jon Snow got to where he is, and how I call her Khaleesi, but Daenerys, yeah, Daenerys Targaryen got where she was, and like all that, and I was like, okay, I got it now. So if you need the visual cues like I do, I just encourage those to have them available.
Okay, well, I will put it in like the visual format that we have our video podcast. I will make sure that we get some visual aids going up for you, and that we have the lineage of whatever is going on here for you all, so you can look and watch that. But yeah, please be careful.
It's like a point in history where like every 2 years, like people are changing hands, and then this person's related to this person and this person. Then, remember this guy from 4 generations back? Well, this is his great great grandson. You're like, wait, what the fuck? Hold on. They're like, by the way, his great aunt is also his cousin, and you're like, hold on, wait.
Yeah, these European royalty lines or like lineages and stuff are. Yeah.
Here we are. We have returned after touching on the British royal family, and I believe it was episode 42 and episode 34, where we talked about the unity of the Kingdom of England, right? So we have, personally for me, I'm not going to go through like everything because it would just take like a long time. So I've hit major markers on it for everybody, right? So this is our last puzzle piece right in the middle that we're going to pop it in. I give you William the Conqueror. And
I knew it. Fucking knew it. I did.
How'd you know?
I was like, all of a sudden when you said, you remember the guy from 4 generations back? I was like, how come I feel like she's going to give us the story on William the Conqueror?
You fucking nailed it, dude. You should have said that.
And then when you said France, like that makes sense because anyway, I got you. Okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it eventually becomes France, but he has a lot to do with France, and they speak an old dialect of French. Franglais, I believe. Franglais? I spelled it out for myself, so. Okay. So he gets his day of history in the European family drama because it just needs to be. Also, like, I don't think he was necessarily like, I don't think anyone of the day as a ruler was like a quote unquote good person, right?
Sure, yeah.
I feel like he really got shafted a lot. Some people have the Kardashians. Here in Hightailing Through History, we have the European royal family drama. It's like Days of Our Lives, but Days of the Dynasties. I'm still pitching that show. I still think it should be. So we're discussing like I said, the last piece of the puzzle that I'm going to do anyway. William the Conqueror, sometimes known by other monikers. We'll get into that later. He is actually the Norman beginning of the English royal family, right? Hang in there with me, people. If you're anything like me, you know next to nothing about this person. I didn't know diddly freaking squat about him, except what I read on Age of the Empires when I did the little historical Battle of Hastings. So, which I fucking smashed that, by the way. The English didn't stand a chance. All right, y'all, let's unravel this tapestry of history together.
Oh, love a tapestry of history.
So, William is the illegitimate son of Duke Robert I of Normandy. But before we get to Robert, I gotta kind of like, because it is gonna matter how the story plays out. So to understand Robert and William, we must start in a place you should all be familiar with at this point, Scandinavia. Any chance I'm dragging you all back there. I don't do this on purpose, I swear to God. So I'm going to be as brief as possible so we don't get distracted, but it's important to understand like how everybody's related, right? In what is modern-day Norway, I know we've been over this before, but just gonna catch everybody up to where we're at. King Harald Fairhair is credited as being the first one to unify the chieftains of Norway, right? Because before they were all tribes warring amongst each other. First one credited with it. So, at that point, we're at about the late 800s, early 900s there. I'm not going to give you like exact dates because I don't want you mixed up in it. Just like focus on who's who.
Sure.
So one war leader was like, "Peace out, screw you. I'm going home." Right? He's like, "I'm not doing what you tell me." So he declared himself independent from his king and sailed off to raid Scotland and England and eventually France. So Rollo laid siege to Paris in an attempt to continue his conquest. He was held at bay by Charles III of France and finally met with Rollo to negotiate a treaty of peace. Right? Good luck. He agreed to give Rollo rule over Neustria, which would come to be called as Normandy. So Normandy, it's not all of the left side of France. It's kind of like the upper left side of France. And that's where it's like, you know what? Stay here. Here's your stuff. It's kind of like placating a toddler. Here's your toys. Here's your snacks. Here's your land. Don't bother me.
Okay.
And that's what he did. It worked. It is from this line, from Rollo's line, that Robert, and therefore William, is descended. So now, in the year of 1026 CE, Richard III took power over Normandy. And immediately, his younger brother Robert took issue with this and revolted. Younger siblings, right? Awkward pause, it says in my notes. Richard would not be ousted. However, he created a royal alliance with France by marrying Adela, the daughter of Robert II, King of France at the time. And as luck would have it, for Robert of Normandy, his brother died a mere year into his reign. Now, here's the deal. It's debated among a lot of historians if he poisoned his brother or not, or had him killed. Basically, what it comes down to is we just don't know. You can speculate all you want, but there's no proof that we can draw that assumption from. So did he? He very possibly could have. You know, and I think that happened a lot in history where it's like, you're in my way, you need to get out of my way. Sure, why not? Nobody lived long back then anyway. Robert of Normandy, also known as the Devil or Robert the Magnificent, depending on who you asked, married the sister of Canute the Great, Estrith. Okay, so Canute, for those of you who don't know, is a Dane. Okay, so he's Danish. He's the son of King Sven Forkbeard. Okay. The Danes and the Norse and the Swedes did not get along, by the way, so don't lump them all in together. They didn't like that. The Swedes and they didn't, no. Like, especially the Danes and the Norwegians hated each other, so it's a thing. To make this less confusing, I'm going to try and give you the Spark Notes version of this, or we'll be here forever. Canute the Great, went back and forth with two English kings until he finally gained his seat as the King of England, exiling the former king's children. Okay. Hang in there. As a marriage of alliance, it was a good one. In the same breath as marrying the king's sister, he would also give refuge to the former King of England's sons. Robert married Canute's sister. Okay, Canute is a Dane who's in charge of England. So, Robert married Canute's sister, and then Ethelred, the first king that was against Sven's Forkbeard, he took his sons in, like gave them safekeeping because they were really young. Because it was said that Canute apparently was a very a lot of these guys, like Canute and them, we talk about them in the sagas, right? This is something, if you read sagas, it's talked a lot about. Everybody comes up eventually. So, and he was ruled with an iron fist, essentially, is what I'm going to lay it out to you. So everyone can't believe that he didn't kill them, but they were like infants, like 4 and 2 and stuff like that. So the plot thickens.
The plot thickens, for sure.
Right. So Robert, who killed his brother Richard, and Estrith, they don't have any children. Okay?
Okay.
His attention was turned towards one of his concubines by the name of Herleva, also known as Arlette. She bore him 2 children. Here's where we meet William. So his mother, instead of marrying her himself, Robert doesn't marry her, obvious. She's not of royal lineage, so no, he was never going to. Like, let's be real here. So she's married off to a count, which is fine. That's actually a good thing for her. I personally think every move she made in life was a very calculated one.
Sure.
I don't think she's an idiot. I also think she's probably a really good mom. It just seems like that. One, all of her children live to adulthood, which, again, if you're being taken care of in the royal family, yeah, your chances are higher, but it just, you'll see what I mean. You will probably have the same opinion of her I did.
Okay.
So she's married off to Herlune, Viscount of Conteville, I think, with whom she had 3 more children. So William has a full sister and 3 half-siblings. Robert, the father, obviously, of Normandy, the dude, he was a very pious man, and he left on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, which I'm just going to point out multiple times as I read through history. There's a lot of them that went on pilgrimages to Rome or Jerusalem. It's a bad fucking idea. All of them die on the way back. So don't fucking do it. Don't pilgrimage anywhere. Just stay where you fucking are. If you want to go to church, go to church. Don't go all the way there. It's a bad idea.
Don't pilgrimage.
History has shown no pilgrimaging. Stop it. So, as I said, he was killed upon his return en route.
Okay. There it is.
So this leaves William, the sole male heir to the throne, which is the only one that matters at this point in history. I'm just going to put it to you blunt. He is the sole heir to the throne at the ripe age of 8 years old. So nobody's hopefully going to leave him in charge of anything. So as you can probably imagine, this was a pretty terrible time for William and his mother of peasant heritage, right?
Yeah.
He was illegitimate. He's young. And a lot of his kinsmen consider it favorable if he died, because then they stand to gain from it, right?
Right. Oh, no.
Really shitty time to be alive for him. So as William was so young, basically anarchy broke out across the state of Normandy. Everyone's like, we're doing what we want.
So I'm assuming he has some sort of like
we're
people around him that, oh, okay.
Yeah, we're getting there.
He can't obviously do it on his own.
No, I would hope not. He's 8. Anarchy everywhere. The purge has broken out across Normandy. Nobles are throwing up their own castles. They're like, listen, I'm in charge now. Lesser nobles are warring amongst themselves across the region. Shit's gone crazy. Everything's on fire. I don't know that, but I'm going to imagine that it was. It's just like the map at the time was just like on fire in Normandy. That's what it was. So to answer your question, 3 of William's guardians died violent deaths before he even reached his teen years. And one of his tutors was also murdered. So everybody's just killing everybody off trying to get to him.
Okay.
But, and in my opinion, the only reason William made it to adulthood is because of his mother. Because she was like, nah, not my kid. You're not getting him. Smart lady. Personal opinion.
Yeah.
This world was built on the backbones of women. Anywho, so his mother found an ally in King Henry I of France. So in the year of 1042, he turned 15. He's knighted, which is still terrifying. He's not even old enough to drive yet. Permit, yes. Drive, no. And yet, here they are. They're like, yeah, be a knight. So he actually was exceptionally capable for a 15-year-old. I'll give him that. He began the long process of taking control of his duchy, by the way, or dukedom. It's pronounced duchy. I Googled it 3 times. It's duchy. Did you know that? Probably.
Pass the duchy on the left-hand side.
And they're like, listen, good luck. You'll figure this out, which I don't know why, again, people all thought this was a good idea. Here we are. So he is taking steps to start to control his dukedom. So from 1046 to 1055, he was quelling rebellions from barons and nobles under him. Everybody throwing up castles and saying, like, I'm in charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, nobles would try to team up and overwhelm him with forces, and in these instances, William had to rely on the support of King Henry of France.
Okay.
So, in 1047, William and Henry, together, teamwork, had a decisive victory over a coalition of rebels at Valeduna is how it Valeduna. I spelled it out phonetically.
Okay.
A battle that gave William a name on the battlefield. So this is where he didn't just be like, go get him, boys. Like, he was on his horse with his sword, like, let's go get him, boys. So
Yeah.
he participated, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was not, he was no slacker, that's for sure. Like, he went out and got it done. And he was very often on the battlefield leading his
Okay.
troops. So, little RESPECT there. So,
Mm-hmm.
as he grew
Indeed.
older, William began to make a name for himself as a competent commander as well, prepared to make a calculated risk, but not so foolish that he would make a silly mistake. His plans were often described as simple and direct, and he would exploit an enemy's weakness at the first opportunity. If he thought they were entering a battle his army could not win, he would withdraw immediately. He governed similarly to how he led on the battlefield. He sought to recover rights that were lost after his father's death, and he was not formally educated, but he was pretty decent in like ways of administration, right? Not terrible. And he was prepared to improvise and experiment. So he was Fleetwood Mac, man. He was going to go his own way. You weren't going to tell him otherwise, but obviously it worked.
Yep.
So he was greatly involved in church, like his father, was considered pious. I'm just going to point out he never makes a pilgrimage, probably why he never died. Well, he does die eventually. Spoiler alert, he does die at some
He's
point.
immortal because he didn't do a pilgrimage.
See, that's the answer. But he doesn't die on a pilgrimage because he didn't go on one. Just putting that out there.
You can't die on a pilgrimage if you don't go in the first place. So.
Exactly my point here. He often made donations to the church and all that, and he appointed his half-brother, Odo, O-D-O, Odo.
Cute. O-D-O-D-O.
Yep.
All right.
To the role of bishop in 1049 at the age of 16. And the two of them actually passed laws against buying or selling offices of church, or any church or holy artifact. They were like, nope, can't be bought, knock that shit off. He welcomed foreign monks and scholars to Normandy. He was like, yes, come partake of our wine/bread. And they had like lots of masters of the liberal arts around, and they were allowed to come hang out and leave when they chose, and he's all about that.
Yeah, sounds all right.
Mm-hmm. So in 1050, William married Matilda. I believe they refer to her as Matilda of Flanders. Matilda is the granddaughter of France's King Robert II, who is a distant cousin. Indeed, but distant cousin. So I don't know that they were that closely related, but whatever. I mean, I thought that shit was normal back in the day. Their union was condemned by the Pope due to incest. So apparently not. Okay. Nevertheless,
I feel like that's your answer right there. I mean, there was a lot of that in general, in these royal families, but Habsburgs. Right? But yeah.
When you said that, I was like, I don't know who that is, but obviously that's another one that I'm going to have to check out.
Yeah, the Habsburg family. That's a whole.
Are they bad?
Well, they are the prime example of inbreeding within a royal family and trying to keep it all in the family. They ended up having very specific birth defects and
like don't do that
because that it's not good for you. That's for sure.
Terrible idea, really.
Yeah, not good for you.
Right. But that being said, William went ahead with the marriage anyway. To gain the church's pardon, William and his wife founded 2 new abbeys in Caen, France, to make amends for his incestuous ways. LOL, I'll build you churches. According to my source at the History Channel, Matilda wanted nothing to do with William at first, probably because he wasn't a legitimate noble. So he gets flack for that his whole fucking life. And I'm like, bro went out and did it. And y'all are like, no, like, They held that over his head even in death. I shit you not. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I was like, man, like, all he did was go out and get it done, was handed a shit sandwich. I don't know. Anywho, Laurel might not like this part, so she spurned his advances. So according to legend, he tackled her off his horse, pulled her down off of her mount by her long braids, and then she consented to marry him.
Oh, did she?
She
Okay.
did.
Ow.
I know.
Dick.
Apparently,
dude.
after this insane act of PDA, she consented to marry him and bore him 10 children before she passed in 1083, which sent William into a very deep depression. Apparently, they liked each other.
Okay.
I mean, maybe in time they grew fond of each other. I have a feeling she just didn't like him because she's a princess, right? I don't know if she is a princess, but she
I know what
is
you're saying.
descended from royalty, and she's like,
nobility.
You want me to marry a bastard? They're married.
Okay.
They built churches because apparently it was incestuous, so there you go. In 1052, William was dealing with a serious uprising in East Normandy until about 1054, and all the while was involved in negotiations with his cousin, Edward the Confessor. Hang in there. Here we go towards family stuff again. Now, I'm sure it's no secret. William grew up with a moniker he hated, one that I don't really refer to him with, because it just seems like a kick in the nuts, but he was known for most of his life as William the Bastard, a name that followed him even after his largest victories, because even after the man does more than a lot of other nobles do, they just can't leave him alone. So while you might disrespect him, he could bear no disrespect towards his mother. He laid siege upon the town of Alençon. Residents hung animal hides out of their windows and doors, mocking him for being the grandson of a tanner, because the last name that Arlette or Heleva, his mother, had, it either translates to either tanner or embalmer, like an undertaker. So his grandfather on his mother's side either was an animal tanner or was an embalmer of bodies. We're not sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. So they hung their animal hides out there, which to me leads to think that it was probably a tanner, but who knows. Avenge his dear mother, William had all the offenders' hands and feet cut off.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of talk of him being a total dickhead, honestly, compared to other royals. But, like, if you did something to piss him off about his mom, he was not kind. So, family tree time.
Okay. All right.
I made this as easy to follow as possible, so hang in there. Okay. So back in 1002 CE, King Ethelred II, that's the guy that Sven's Forkbeard was warring with, Canute's daddy, he ruled over England. He was married to Emma, who is the sister of William's grandfather, Richard II.
Okay.
So William's dad, Robert, it's his dad. Okay. Okay. Remember, Robert married Canute's sister.
I'm already fighting for my life, but okay.
It only gets worse. So William's father, Robert I, little brother of Richard III, whom it was speculated he poisoned, just giving everybody. Emma and Ethelred had 2 sons, Alfred Atheling and Edward the Confessor. These are the 2 that Robert gave asylum to, I guess you would say, like kept them safe after Canute was there. Those were the 2 sons. For anyone interested, Ethelred died and Emma married Canute. So Canute took Emma as his wife. And so Canute's sister married William's father, and they had no children. Right? Because William is the illegitimate child. So far, so good?
Yes.
Okay. You're filling me with confidence.
Yes. Okay.
So, let me see if I can. So, these boys would have been Edward's cousins once removed. I'm sorry, William's cousins once removed. So they're related. Make sense? That's really where we're going with this.
Right. Okay.
So, while Edward was in exile from Canute's rule, William would have been about 13. Edward would have been about 36. Obviously, he allied himself with William, and gained support from him when he returned back to England. And it's pretty clear that William anticipated some sort of reward or kickback from this, right? I helped you, you helped me, I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Mm-hmm.
His ambition grew, especially when Edward's marriage proved unfruitful and had no children. So he's negotiating in England whilst quelling uprisings, right? So he had to quell another uprising from 1054 to 1060, right? Which very nearly succeeded. Pretty much would have been the end for him because a wealthy and powerful count, Geoffrey Martel, led an uprising and allied himself with King Henry of France, who had now turned against William because I fucking don't know why. So, combined with another internal revolt from rebels within Normandy, so had all these forces coordinated their attacks and done it together, William would have been done. That would have been it. No William the Conqueror. He would have just been some blip in the history books.
Right.
However, that's not what happened. He suppressed the rebel forces, defeated Henry and Geoffrey at the Battle of Mortimer in 1054, and again in Varaville in 1057. And then, to make things much easier for him, they both died in 1060. So,
just sweating.
Problem solved, yeah. William conquered Maine, which is on the more northern side of France, in 1063, and was the most powerful ruler in northern France after this.
Okay.
So sometime between, I know there's a lot of dates rolling at you guys, I apologize. I'm just trying to give you guys like timelines. Basically every year, every couple of years, something's fucking happening. So between 1064 and 1065, Edward the Confessor, the childless one, kept it in parentheses, trying to give everybody something to put something to the name. Edward the Confessor sent his brother-in-law, who I am not getting into, I'm just giving you who it is, Harold, another Harold. This one's Harold with an O, not an A. He's English. The A's are Danish / Norwegian / Scandinavian. So Harold is the Earl of Wessex, right? So this is Edward's wife's brother-in-law. Okay. Easy enough. Yep. So he sent him to Normandy to confirm Edward's recognition of William as his heir. While en route, Harold was captured and held for ransom because drama is full in this story. I don't know if it's as full as your story. I probably should have gone first because it's not as dramatic as like your shit was, but he's held for ransom.
That's all right.
William paid the ransom and rescued him and then was like, you want to come campaigning with me? Harold's like, hell yeah, let's do it. So William took Harold on a campaign into Brittany, France. It's said that around this time, Harold swore an oath that he, himself, would uphold William's right to gain the English throne upon Edward's death, right? William shown him great kindness, took care of him, ransomed it out, took him on a campaign, probably fed him a turkey leg. But more drama is afoot. Upon Edward's death, January 5th, 1066, Harold, like the backstabbing, two-faced, lying wretch that he is, decided to become king instead. The magnates in England accepted his bid for ruler. Damn Saxons. So William, not being called the Conqueror for nothing, decided on war. William, as we've said before, was not a fool, and first went about ensuring he had international support before embarking on his venture across the English Channel. First, he secured his duchy, bestowed the authority to his wife and son, Robert. There's a lot of fucking Roberts in here, so just hang in there.
Yeah.
He further secured their position with key supporters and important, powerful positions to assist with the ducal administrations, right? So give you people who I know are going to help you guys so that someone's not going to usurp you and kill you while I'm gone. Good idea. He then petitioned the Pope of Rome and received the blessing of Pope Alexander II and Archdeacon Hildebrand, who would become Pope Gregory the Seventh, to gain support for the invasion. VII 7.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, I got this on lockdown. So lastly, he appealed to volunteers to join his invasion army from both within Normandy and without, and he won numerous recruits. They were like, take me, I'll go. What do you want to bet he, like, promised everybody, like, a plot of land or something? Actually, to be honest, he was a man of his word, and he made good on his promises. He didn't fuck around or find out. He just
did.
He just did, yeah.
He did the thing, yeah.
He did the thing. So while William is readying his careful plan, Tostig, Harold's brother, Harold's exiled brother, is probably important to mention that, raids England with his own forces.
Oh, shit.
Yes. The fuckery is afoot. This, like, again, like I said, every, like, 3 years, shit's changing, someone's doing something, and they're all related. So, there it is.
There it is.
So, as he was cut down by his brother's allies, he left and sought allies with King Harold III of Norway. Descended from good old King Harold I, Harold Fairhair, from whom Rollo pieced out from in the beginning. Harold III from Harold I, Rollo. Got it. So Tostig and Harold, with an A, because he's Scandinavian, launched an attack on, you guessed it, Northumbria, because they just can't leave it alone. Because for some reason, if you've got Scandinavian/Viking blood in you, you just lust after those shores of Northumbria. Why? I have no idea. For those of you who don't know, Viking Kings of Dublin, you'll get the joke if you listen to that. Edward died in January. All the crap went down. Now by August, William is ready to launch his invasion. Okay. August of 1066. So they made for the north coast to invade via the Isle of Wight. Wight as in, like, Dwight. Like spelled like Dwight, okay? Or light. Or night. Or fight. However, inclement weather blew them off course and even caused some naval losses in the fleet before they found each other again and proceeded to the land to take the town of Pevensey and Hastings. What? That name sounds familiar. I sense something coming that I've heard about before. You're probably right. Hang in there with me. So William is now stuck on a very narrow strip of land because it's on the coast. So ocean, and then the great forest of Andred right there. So he's kind of, which, like, I don't know how much of y'all know nothing about nothing or anything about anything, but walking through, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, the forest of Fangorn is probably what Andred looked like. The old-ass forests of England, that shit was not easy to get through. The trees were old, roots were gnarled. You're laughing at me. They can't get through the forest. It's freaking hard, so they're stuck. I'm glad that this is amusing you. I gotta drop parallels, man, so I know what's going on. I'm sure somewhere out there there's another person on the end of this audio or video recording who's like, I understood that. Yeah. Thank you.
I understood that reference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And also the way my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're in England. Stuck. Yeah. Not a whole lot of spots for him to go. He received news that Harold with an O defeated Tostig and Harold with an A, the third.
Oh, okay.
So they defeated Tostig and Harold III at Stamford Bridge on September 25th, and both sides suffered heavy losses. Important to note. Harold is now like, holy shit, now I've got another invasion coming on this side, turns around, rides back towards Hastings to meet his next opponent. This is Harold with an O.
Okay.
Other Harold's dead.
Wow. Okay. He's doing a lot.
Yeah, he is. Really, but he's also a backstabbing, lying wretch. So, because he promised, and he went back on his promise. He's not a man of his word. He's an oath breaker. On October 13th, Harold, with an O, emerged from the forest, but it was too late in the day to start a battle. So says in my notes, bitches didn't have electricity back in the day. It made things more complicated. So, battles would not be happening in the dark.
Like, hang on, we gotta wait for some sunshine here. Yeah. So, yeah.
Plus, they're also exhausted, probably. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't look up how close Stamford Bridge and Hastings are, but it was probably, like, Here, fight a horrible battle, have heavy losses, half of you are injured, now let's go fight another, like, invasion force. Like, that shit sucks. So.
Yeah, that's good.
But again, all you had to do is not be a lying McLiar pants, and this wouldn't be a problem. You probably would have had an earldom. William took care of those who took care of him. I'm just saying, just gonna throw it out there. Things could have been good, but you ruined it.
Yeah, this is why you can't have nice things.
Indeed. So, fun fact, this super important battle we're about to talk about happened on my birthday. So, I will never forget that. So early on October the 14th, Harold rallied his exhausted troops for a battle, and William attacked. During the invasion of England, William's jester rode next to him to keep the spirits of the troops up, as singing about heroic deeds and whatnot. Why are you laughing?
I know, I'm not laughing. It's more of like, oh, that's precious. Like,
yeah,
oh, I always rode next to him.
Yeah, he was hanging out. You're not going to like what I'm going to tell you next. So at the Battle of Hastings, this big old battle that a lot of people have heard of, the jester was taunting enemy lines by juggling swords and was promptly killed. Yeah, unfortunately. So,
but bless him for it. The fact that he was just like, I'm going out hard. You know, I'm gonna like what a badass to be like. I'm just gonna juggle swords. How about that? I mean,
he had no fear. He really believed that.
What a man!
So the jester's killed. William's upset. He attacks. I think he was going to attack anyway, but that probably didn't help things. So initially, the English line held firm. Specifically, it said the English phalanx. So I think they were doing like the Roman thing where they had the shields up, which would make sense because William is attacking with his cavalry. Probably would be about the only thing you could do to guard against them. So the English line held firm against William's archers and cavalry, and the cavalry turned in apparent confusion. William himself sprints off on his horse after these guys to rally the fleeing horsemen. Bitches were just about to be like, see ya, like, where are you going? To the ocean? Certainly not in the Fangorn Forest, / the Andred Forest. So he rallies those bitches up, turns around, and they slaughtered all the foot soldiers who gave chase to them.
Oh, okay.
On 2 more occasions, the cavalry led an apparent retreat to draw the line out, only to turn around and decimate all of the soldiers who were caught out in the open.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very smart. And as night began to fall, the king himself was struck in the eye by an arrow. For those of you Skyrim people, not the knee. He didn't take an arrow to the knee. He took an arrow to the eye. Get fucked. He died. So upon the death of the king, the English quickly gave up, and William moved to secure any resistance and quash any emergence of a new leader.
Wow.
So Battle of Hastings. I say we celebrate the Battle of Hastings on October 14th this year with cake.
And presents for you.
I mean, that too. So on Christmas Day of 1066, and William was crowned king in Westminster Abbey and completed the Norman conquest of England on Christmas Day of 1066. So there you go. Wow. That was when he earned the moniker William the Conqueror, right? Just conquering away. Not that I'm trying to take anything away from him, but like, it's not as much as like I thought it was with a name like William the Conqueror. I thought he'd have France. I thought he'd have England, Scotland, Ireland, like Greece. I don't know. Greece is really far away, but maybe he likes olive oil. Like I just thought he had like everything from like Italy to like England, possibly Denmark. It was just Normandy and England. So not taking anything away. It was impressive. Sure. Yeah. But it was one of those things where I was like, I thought with a name like that, it'd be a bit bigger. Because you have Alexander the Great and William the Conqueror. Who do you think is going to be more impressive? I would pick the Conqueror. But you're like, nah, dude. It was Alexander the Great. And I'm like, well, it's a bit of a letdown then, isn't it? Putting that out there. So William... William was... You're hearing all my inner thoughts as I write and research these stories, by the way. So, William was swift in settling his kingdom and maintaining order, quickly replacing Saxon nobles with Normans.
Okay.
He also replaced the Anglo-Saxon bishops of England with Normans, with the exception of the Bishop Wulfstan of Dorchester. So William left England in 1067, only to turn right back around and return in December to deal with rebellions, which I think his entire life was made up of doing. So, which increased in veracity until they peaked in 1069. When William finally resorted to violent measures that shocked even his peers. That's all it said. It didn't go into it. I have a feeling I don't want to know what it went into. But that's like the first mention, besides the disrespect to his mother, that I ever really hear of him being really violent. So he's not like, again,
ruthless for the sake of being
it doesn't really seem like he's that bad a guy, especially for a name like William the Conqueror. I expected him to be like a Lannister. I expected him to be really terrible, and he just for the most part, he just didn't seem too horrible. But when shit just doesn't settle down, he's like, all right, you want me to go there? We will go there. So he went there.
Mm-hmm.
They fucked around. They found out. He introduced the Norman practice of building castles, which included the Tower of London, built under William the Conqueror's rule, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm going to go there just to see that. I'm going to assume he was there. Maybe he wasn't. It doesn't really say. So the rebellions were quelled, and then in 1071, and with them came the ruin of the English aristocracy. William secured the country with Norman lords, replacing the English nobles, because they just couldn't be trusted. So there you go. During the last 15 years of his life, William spent most of his time in Normandy, which, I mean, that's home, so it doesn't surprise me. He only returned whenever it was absolutely necessary. In 1075, he had to return to put yet another rebellion to rest. This rebellion was led by Ralph, Earl of Norfolk, who had some intervention from the Danish fleet, who can't mind their own shit. So, he returned again in 1082 to arrest his half-brother Odo. Odo got where he got in a lot of things because William made him a bishop, or whatever, you know. So, really surprised that he did this, but again, nobody could give this guy a break for some reason. So his brother was attempting to take an army to Italy and make himself pope. Nope, not going to happen on William's watch. Very pious man. Again, so he's like, absolutely not. Jail. He has 10 children, right? We know that. The oldest one is Robert. The next oldest is William, another William, but goes by Rufus, and then it's Henry. So those are the three main players. So it goes Robert, William / Rufus, I just call him Rufus, and Henry. So those are the three main players.
Okay. All right.
Either all the other rest were just too young to matter, I know the feeling, or or they were all women, so who knows? Yet again, another feeling I know. So anyway, so all well, Normandy's borders still required strict protection, as ever his enemies plotted against him. King Philip I of France allied himself with the Danish king Canute IV, not to mention his son Robert, his oldest son, his heir, William's heir, left Normandy to see what his father's enemies could offer him.
Ooh,
I wouldn't have given that kid shit. In 1077, William gave Robert, in my opinion, the spoiled brat who didn't deserve anything, gave him Maine, France, and made him a count, which he didn't deserve. But King Philip had taken over other territories that were formerly Norman, so he's pushing onto the borders of Normandy.
Okay.
Which doesn't surprise me. So in 1087, William demanded that he return them at once, and he marched upon the town of Montes? Should have looked it up. He burned the town, right? So he's like burning the town, conquering away, possibly. And in this battle, his horse rears up. And it throws him against the pommel, his stomach. The pommel is like, so if you've seen a Western where the horn is, the pommel is like the raised part in the front of it. So they wouldn't have had a horn because that's for the cowboys. That's what you tie the rope around when you rope something. So imagine a Western saddle without the horn. It's just a straight raised pommel. So throws him against it and causes his intestines to rupture. So
yikes.
It was at this point that I desperately wanted to send a message to Dr. Reed and be like, hey, I have questions. You know things about history. You have a PhD in knowing things about history.
Right.
He might not know about this history, but I have a feeling he knows more than I do. And I was going to be like, hey, why is nobody, in my opinion, nobody's curious about this? Couldn't find anything online. Nobody cares. So, and I go into it later. He gets like, so he was always described as taller than average height, strapping, very stout, very strong, right? He was described as not a bad looking man. But later in life, his belly like ballooned. And and he was active. He even put himself on a diet. But he got super huge. So I was like, he had to have a medical issue. I'm saying I take a pommel to the stomach not all the time, but I've had it happen a couple times.
Yeah.
Because if you get on a horse and you expect not to fall off, you're lying to yourself. So to me, like having a distended stomach like that, and then like, I don't know. To me, I was like, he had to have some sort of medical issue. He was this mighty conquering man who always kept himself in shape, and he even put himself on a diet when it started to happen, and it just got worse. It didn't get better. So
yeah, something else going on there,
right?
Interesting.
But so nobody cares.
No one cares. Oh,
no one cares. And I was like all online, and I was like, what was wrong with him? His intestines, blah blah blah. Why was his stomach big? And everyone's like, ha, yeah, he was fat. And I was like, but he's not. Really like he wouldn't just happen like that, especially if he had access to a good diet. And then people are saying, well, all nobles were overweight back in the day because they had access to. I'm like, yeah, but he was active. He was always out doing shit, So it's not like, I don't know.
I don't know.
So his intestines ruptured. This poor guy, he does not catch a break. So William was taken to the priory of Saint Gervais, where he lay dying for 5 weeks before the infection took him.
Ooh.
I know. It's not pleasant. It only gets worse from here, too. His half-brother, Robert, attended him, along with his younger sons, William, Rufus, and Henry, as his traitorizing little bastard, spoiled child, Robert, was still with King Philip of France.
Oh, yeah.
So it was thought that William's intention was that Robert should inherit everything as a whole, but since he was elsewhere and his loyalties were divided, William had been sorely tempted to make loyal Rufus, the other William, his sole heir. And then he did something I don't agree with, but he compromised. This is what I'm talking about. Like, he wasn't like a bad guy. He tried to give everybody their piece, right? He was trying to be fair, which I wouldn't have fucking done. Anywho. Normandy and Maine went to Robert, although he didn't deserve it. England went to Rufus, the other William. And Henry was given great treasure with which to purchase his own land and castle wherever he saw fit. Upon him saying that, his sons didn't even wait for him to die. They left. Yeah. Yeah. They didn't even stay.
He dies in the most terrible way.
Yep. Oh. It gets worse. Yeah. So they don't even wait. They're just like, peace out, Dad. It'll be real. See you on the other side. So they're out. Like, as his father dies the next day at daybreak on September 9th, in his 60th year, he lived to 60. Is that fucking old back then?
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would think that's pretty old, right?
Right? That's what I said. I was like, everybody else died when they were in there at like 25, so... What are they saying? How to Train Your Dragon? We're Vikings. It's an occupational hazard. True. So, his burial was to take place at St. Stephen's funeral. I'm sorry. St. Stephen's, it's not a funeral. It's not a cathedral. It's like a church. St. Stephen's in Normandy/France. It would be called France now. It was interrupted by a fire in the town as a noble stood up during... This fucking guy. He just can't catch a break even in fucking death. Someone stands up, they're like, well, he dispossessed my land to be buried in. He can't be buried here. But he felt he was being dispossessed of the land that William to be buried in. So basically, they pay out the sum for the plot of land. He's compensated so that William may be buried here. So sadly, the casket was too small to fit William's bulk.
Oh no.
Oh yes. As he got very large later in life, despite being described as fit and strapping in his early years, he apparently ballooned later in life, got a massive belly. As the monks attempted to stuff his body into the casket, you might want to hold on to something.
Okay.
His abdomen burst, causing everyone within the church to run for the hills to escape the putrid stench. Yes. Also, I read in one of my sources where they said that before he even got a casket, like as he died, everybody in the room picked up, took everything, left his dead, naked body there on the ground and left. Nobody buried William. A knight passing by took pity on him and took him to St. Stephen's and paid for the funeral.
Whoa.
What the fuck? Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. So to add insult to injury, the body burst, so they had to physically break his body to get it into the casket. Every member of the royal family we see today are descendants of William the Conqueror, as is 25% of England, according to some genealogists. A lot of them are related, which probably makes a lot of sense if he had 10 kids and they were given noble spots everywhere. Pretty interesting. He was also the one who introduced the name William to England, making it the most popular boy name by the 13th century. William is the French variation of the German name Wilhelm, like warrior protector.
Right.
That's what it means. So the tomb itself was not left for long, as Calvinists, which were French Protestants, desecrated the grave in the 16th century. And then, in the 18th century, during the French Revolution, revolutionaries scattered his bones. Just ripped up the grave and threw them, which was kind of shitty, in my opinion. Now, the grave of the once great Norman king is marked by a simple stone slab.
Oh, man.
That's the story of William the Conqueror. Man who made a lot out of a little and pretty much got shit on for his entire life. Which is why I don't refer to him by his other name, because I just felt too bad for the guy.
Yeah. Bless.
I know.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Katie.
Yeah. On that happy note, as I was going, I was like, man, this is just getting more and more depressing.
I feel like that's what a lot of that early history, well, I mean, you can find any time in history like that where you're like, oh, man, that just hurts. But yeah, some of that early history where there's not a lot, like doctors and like things like that where you're like, oh no, gross.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, just the fact that you don't even wait for your dad to die. He literally just went off to England. He was literally coronated within 5 days of his dad telling him he could have England. So he booked it across the channel.
Great, let me go do that right now.
Mm-hmm. And he pulled nobles in. He's like, come on, we're doing this. And everyone, a monk present described it as an what did he say? Something like an alarm ceremony or something. Basically it was hurry, hurry, hurry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was like...
So just thoughts here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be with the intention of okay, the king is dying, we need to have somebody crowned right away?
But all the nobles were Normans. But I guess you're right. Everybody was out for themselves in that day. So it's possible.
Let's get this done now before people try and take the throne.
So why didn't Henry stick around and make sure his dad got buried?
Well, no, I think the other two are shitty too. But I'm not going to apologize for any of it. But just a thought, maybe there.
I could see that, especially when the news reaches England that hey, William's dead. They're like, anarchy, because that's what happened with Robert.
Right.
It's possible, but Henry had money and shit. Where's he gonna go? You could have at least made sure your dad was buried.
No one cared.
It kind of felt that way. And for some reason, again, I'm sure I will never know. I've never met the man. I didn't get to see it. So I'm sure he probably wasn't the world's best person. No old ass leader usually was, because you had to roll with might, it was kill or be killed. But it just kind of seemed like he wasn't more aggressive than was necessary. And it was just surprised me that people were just so like dismissive and stuff. And I was like, man, I kind of feel really bad for this guy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, thanks for bringing that history to us. That was good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
I might have been fighting for my life a few times there, trying to figure it all out, but hopefully
I cut out a lot too, because there was more in there. And I was like, you know what? It's not necessary. It doesn't tell the story any better. It's out.
Well, thank you, Katie. And yeah, that's it's a big episode for y'all.
Right.
We're back with you again. We've got a lot of big things to say. But in the meantime, folks, get money, get high, give love, and Katie,
happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.